And welcome to the Planning Committee. I shall just read out a few of the rules that we do on this Planning Committee tonight, which are: welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee. We are recording this meeting this evening using our webcasting system. The webcasts will be transmitted live and will also be available on the Council's website following the meeting. Generally, the public seating areas are not filmed. However, by entering the meeting room and using the public seating areas, you are consenting to be filmed and to the possibility use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting or training purposes. I have the discretion to stop or suspend the recording of the meeting should this be necessary to maintain the proper running of this meeting. This is a meeting of the Council, held in public. It is not a public meeting. All mobile devices should be switched off or set to silent so that the meeting is not interrupted by ringtones. Anyone else intending to film or audio record any part of the meeting is asked to do so in a manner that does not disrupt the meeting. Please refrain from filming the public gallery or public speakers on items. If the fire alarm sounds, leave by the nearest exit and officers will advise when it's safe to return to the meeting. Procedure for each item. The planning officer will present their reports and committee members will ask any points of clarification. The meeting will allow those who have given notice that they wish to address the committee on a particular application to do so. Thank you. Item 1, apologies for absence.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We've got apologies from Councillor Emma Callaghan with Councillor Davies substituting.
Thank you very much. Item 2, declarations of interest and lobbying. Alex?
Yeah, sorry, apologies from Parish Councillor Mark Cotterill, who's at another meeting this evening.
Any declarations of interest? Chris?
Yeah, item number 6, Members Director for Sempre Homes. So be excused if possible. Thank you.
Mike?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. So item number 4, prior to my time as a councillor, I submitted a response to the council online on an application on this particular site, so I'll be recusing myself from that item. And on item number 5, I was lobbied by email on this item, but I hadn't read the contents of the email, and I've come with an open mind on that item. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Alex.
Thank you, Chair. Same as Councillor Baker, I've been lobbied on item 5, but come with an open mind.
Councillor, I'm being lobbied on 5 and 6, which I have an open mind against, and it's a non-prejudiced interest. Okay. Item 3, minutes of the previous meeting. To confirm the minutes of the Planning Committee held on the 29th of January. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Obviously, you can't vote on it because you wasn't here. Thank you. Going to item 4, outline application with all matters reserved except access for the development of the site to provide up to 480 new homes with primary access from London Road and secondary access from Mount Nessing Road, with associated infrastructure, landscaping, open space and drainage at land north of London Road, Billericay. And I'll pass this over to our officer, Louise.
Thank you, Chair. As you said, this is an outline application, so as it's in outline form, other than the exception of access, all other matters are reserved for future consideration i.e. appearance, landscaping, layout and scale. However, indicative illustrative plans have been submitted with the application, and I'll go through these in more detail shortly. The applicant is Red Row Homes Limited, and the application constitutes EIA development, environmental impact assessment development, given the size of the development proposal, and therefore the application has been accompanied by an environmental statement, or ES as the report refers, which, along with all the application documents, has been independently reviewed by the Council's appointed EIA consultants, Pell Frischman. So here you can see in red is the application site. It's located on the northern side of London Road, Billericay, and is approximately 15.7 hectares in size. The site is located within the green belt, and it comprises agricultural land. The site is located immediately to the south of the railway line and borders the rear of residential properties in London Road, some of the properties in Cortlands and Kenilworth Close, some of the properties on the western side of Mount Nessing Road, and also properties in the Mullions, which is located to the northeast of the site. It is therefore located adjacent to the settlement boundary of Billericay, is sited approximately 800 metres west, or half a mile of Billericay High Street at its nearest point, and then extended to approximately 0.85 of a mile at its furthest point, taken in straight line distance. There are no listed buildings or heritage assets located within the actual application site itself. However, Great Cowbridge Grange Farm, which is a non-designated heritage asset, is located to the west of the site, and you can see its location on the aerial image, which is on page 106 of the agenda. There is a gas pipeline running through the site in approximate north-south direction, but located towards the western side of the site. And in terms of land levels, the site slopes gently from east to west, with the northeastern section being the most elevated. Running through the centre of the site in an east-west direction is a public right-of-way, Billericay 11, which leads from Mount Nessing Road from the east between two existing residential properties, and it leads to Great Cowbridge Grange Farm to the west of the site. There is a group of trees on the site which benefit from TPOs, and these are located in the northeastern corner, the far corner adjacent to the railway line, and to the rear of the Mullions. This slide shows the aerial image of the site, which predominantly consists of arable fields and broken up by established field boundaries. A strong part of the site's character are the various parcels of arable fields, which are broken up by field boundaries, drainage ditches, hedgerows, and the occasional tree. A ditch runs through the centre of the site in an east-west direction, adjacent to the public right-of-way. Okay, so you can see some site photographs in front of you. These photographs have been taken actually on the site itself and shows various views across the site. So if I start in the top left-hand corner, this image is taken from the public right-of-way, and it shows this extent of the site facing west, so Mount Nessing Road would be behind you in that picture. The top middle photograph is taken from the opposite direction, so facing east, so facing the rear of some of the properties on Mount Nessing Road, which lie next to the site and have their rear gardens facing onto the site. The top right-hand photograph is taken from London Road, and it shows some of the existing neighbouring properties immediately to the south or the southeast corner of the site. And with some of the properties in Cortlands there, you can see in the distance, sort of in the rear of that picture, or to the rear of the London Road properties. Moving to the bottom left-hand corner, that faces south. It shows the existing screening that is located to the rear of the properties, which have quite large rear gardens on the western side of Mount Nessing Road. And the bottom middle picture is the northwestern corner of the site. You can just about see, it's very small, but the railway line, the overhead power lines there for the railway. So if you imagine the railway would be on the right-hand side of that picture. And then finally, the bottom right-hand picture is taken in a northeasterly direction towards the rear of properties in Mount Nessing Road, where land is generally at its highest point on site. So these other site photographs are some Google images. So the top ones there are showing you the position of the proposed access onto Mount Nessing Road. You can see where there's an existing field access and gate there. And then the bottom two are from London Road. So the bottom left-hand picture is the one that faces west. So if you're going out of the borough in that direction. and then the other as you face east, heading towards the town centre. So in terms of plans, as I said before, the application is accompanied by a number of illustrative plans. These include an illustrative development framework plan, which you can see in front of you, building heights plans, a street hierarchy plan, character area plan, and illustrative landscaping plans. In addition, an outline design code has been submitted. This has been reviewed and updated following liaison with the council's urban designer. As you can see before you, this slide shows the illustrative development framework plan. It shows the main access to the site, which is located just south of London Road, and that's shown by the red arrow there. And then the secondary access is the blue arrows, so to the eastern side of the site, or the western side of Mount Lessing Road, sort of in the middle of the site there, with the blue arrow. Leading from the London Road access, shown dotted in blue, so from the south of the site is the major access road, which would weave through the site and connects with the dotted red line, which is the minor access roads, which again loops the site internally and leads back out towards the Mount Lessing Road access. The green dotted line, which encompasses the entire central section of the site and links with both accesses, is a proposed pedestrian and cycle route. The very light yellow wash you can see mostly over that scheme is the proposed residential development parcels, and these are connected with the white, more minor roads on site. The existing public right-of-way, which runs through the site, is shown dashed in pink. And then the very small dotted red line, which is quite difficult to see, but it's very small and faint there, that shows an indicative recreational walking route around the site, which heads over and around the western side of the site, which is given over for suds, drainage and soft landscaping. So you've got a western strip there that's left undeveloped. And then the plan also shows two parcels of land, which would be two areas of two play areas, or we call them leaps, locally equipped areas of play. You can just see there's some like green dots on there that they're sort of scattered. Two of those are spread out within the residential areas amongst those. And yeah, also on the plan itself, existing vegetation to be retained is shown in dark green, and then with lighter green areas with new trees and hedgerow planting. On the top left-hand corner, you can see a red star, that is proposed to be a new foul water pumping station with a 15-metre buffer surrounding it. This plan is the illustrative street hierarchy plan, so it builds off the previous framework plan. It sets out the various streets and access roads within the site. I won't go through them in a lot of detail, but you can see there the secondary streets are shown in dark purple, shared spaces in lilac, private drives or lanes are shown dashed in light pink. So the building heights plan, you can see here there's 3 different shading or horizontal sketching on there, which shows the various heights of the buildings envisaged across the site, which range up to 3 stories in height. So 3 stories would be the maximum height. These properties are the ones which are shaded in black, so they'd be located adjacent to the railway line. That section there, you can see the rectangle strip would be 3 stories in height. Adjacent to the eastern boundary, again, you've got kind of like a light orangey colour, for want of a better description, shading to the rear of the properties off Mount Lessing Road, where buildings would be no more than 2 stories in height. And the remainder in the bulk of the site, shown in light yellow, would be up to 2.5 stories in height, so 2.5, with occasional 3 stories scattered amongst that where appropriate. However, further details would be dealt with at the reserve matter stage. This slide shows the illustrative character area plans. There's 4 different character areas, which are indicated by the various colours there. I won't go through them, but they are set out within the report at pages 68 to 70. In terms of density, the site would have an average density of 31 dwellings per hectare, This would allow for different densities across the site to be formed, including higher densities along the primary routes and lower densities along towards the peripheries where development is closer to existing properties. There would also be different densities across the various character areas that you can see there. So I touched before about the Western Landscape Corridor, which would remain free from development. So it's a bit grainy there, but you can just roughly work out where you can see some suds parcels there. So some large basins which would provide the drainage to the site, provide a place for runoff, surface water to run into. It would also provide informal surface footpaths. You can see there the dotted red sort of orangey colour line which weaves its way through. And this would provide pedestrian access around this area of open space. There would also be new native shrub and tree planting, woodland planting to enhance existing boundary vegetation, wildflower meadow planting, and nature play trail for children, scattered tree planting, areas of mown grass and bulb planting. With the existing public right-of-way there, you can see in purple dotted through, and that would be retained. It would also be enhanced with an all-weather year-round surfacing as well. Also proposed are green corridors through the remainder of the site, and these would run across the entire site in an east-west direction. These areas would see hedgerows retained and enhanced, and also new tree planting, flowering lawns and the existing ditch enhanced. And these details are set out on page 75. With regard to open space, a total of 9.4 hectares would remain on site as public open space for the benefit of both existing and future residents, and this represents 37% of the total site area. In terms of trees and hedgerows, it's envisaged that only one tree would need to be removed on site, with approximately 101 new trees to be planted. There will be the removal of five sections of hedgerow and one hedgerow altogether. This would be replaced by with 940 metres of new hedgerow planting. Page 87 sets out further details. Final numbers, however, would be, of course, dealt with at the reserve matter stage. So the next slides lead on to the proposed access works. So there's two accesses to and from the site, which we've said before. The slide shows you in front of you the proposed access onto London Road, which would be located to the west of Courtlands. Visibility displays are shown dotted there in blue. There's also obviously going to be new road markings, the introduction of a 30 miles per hour speed limit, new footway and widening of the carriage to allow for right-hand turn lanes into the site. This slide shows the position of the proposed vehicular access into the site located off Mount Lessing Road to the south of its junction with Bellevue Road, and again the associated visibility displays there dotted in blue. It should also be noted that both accesses have gone through a stage 1 road safety audit. So in order to mitigate the proposed development, mitigation schemes in the form of proposed highway works are put forward for two existing junctions which are located to the east of the site. Firstly at the Mount Lessing Road and London Road junction, which you can see there sort of on the left-hand side of the picture. And then secondly at the London Road, Western Road and Tyre Common junction on the right-hand side of the picture. So in terms of the London Road, Mount Lessing Road junction, the mitigation would comprise of the signalisation of this junction, which would enable traffic to safely exit Mount Lessing Road and reduce the levels of delay that would otherwise be experienced. Also proposed is a dedicated ahead and left and right turning lanes on London Road approaching to that junction. A two-stage toucan crossing would also be provided either side of Mount Lessing Road to facilitate movements along the proposed shared foot and cycleway, which I'll talk about shortly. And also a new puffing crossing on the western side of the junction would be installed, and this would replace the existing uncontrolled crossing, which has a refuge in the road on London Road as existing. So moving on to sort of the right-hand side of that picture, so the London Road and Tyre Common signalised junction. At the moment, we've obviously Highways been consulted on this, so we just need to take into account that they've mentioned that this junction is highly constrained to enable any significant improvements in capacity. However, the proposed mitigation comprises of increasing the length of the existing two-lane approach eastbound and westbound on London Road, to increase the amount of traffic that can store as such for right turning traffic. Lane widths are proposed to be increased to 3.5 metres. The existing bus stop lay-by on the eastern side of the junction is maintained, but reduced in depth to enable the increased length of the two-lane approach, which I've previously described. The existing puffing crossing on Western Road would be removed and replaced with a toucan crossing situated closer to the junction to facilitate movements along the proposed share foot and cycleway, whilst maintaining a minimum width of 2.5 metres. The footway leading to the existing crossing narrows, restricting the ability to maintain the existing crossing location. Existing pedestrian crossings are retained and increased in width as necessary to accommodate the changes in the lane widths. And also the existing public footpath that connects Western Road with Hillary Mount is increased in width so as to accommodate cyclists who would then return to the carriageway on Hillary Mount. Also, in addition to these works and in respect of highways mitigation, the proposal would also provide the following works, which would again be all at the developer's expense. So again, I've touched on them, but we're talking about upgrading the existing footway on London Road. That would lead from the site access all the way along to the east, connecting with Western Road to deliver a share foot pedestrian cycleway, which would provide walking and cycling improvements to and from the site itself and into the town centre. In addition, nearby bus stops in Mount Nessing Road and London Road would be upgraded to provide raised curbs, bus shelters and real-time passenger information boards, making them more accessible. Also, in addition, and finally, would be a contribution of £1.3 million towards bus service enhancements, which, along with other recent permissions, would facilitate an enhanced bus route, and this would provide an hourly and evening service along the London Road and Mount Nessing Road corridors, and that would connect to other parts of the borough, including Billericay Station, Basildon, local shop services, Basildon Hospital, the Sporting Village and Festival Leisure Park. And this contribution would improve existing bus frequency, accessibility and routing. So the next two slides are some illustrations of what the proposed development may look like. So in terms of the key issues, they are set out here, you can see in front of you. So we've got the principle of developing this Greenbelt site, which includes the new MPPF, which was introduced on the 12th of December last year, the Grey Belt, the Golden Rules. And obviously, if members consider that it's inappropriate development, the consideration of very special circumstances. It is considered that, or officers consider that the proposal constitutes Grey Belt land and therefore meets the Golden Rules. The definition is set out obviously within the report, and therefore in accordance with paragraph 158 of the MPPF, this carries significant weight. However, should members consider the development to be inappropriate, consideration of the very special circumstances will need to take place, and these are set out at 5.20 of the report. Other considerations include the design and layout and landscape character, which we've broadly touched on previously. Whilst it's recognised that there will be some identified local level harm, the proposed development subject to appropriate landscape mitigation would, in officers' opinion, be capable of being accommodated within the site without significant harm to the wider landscape and integrates satisfactorily within its wider Greenbelt context. The next issue is the impact on neighbouring amenity. This is assessed fully at section 5.5 of the report, which concludes that whilst it is appreciated that any subsequent reserved matters application will deal with layout and design, given the illustrative development framework and parameters plans, with some of the areas closest to neighbours being reserved for development up to 2 storeys in height, or areas of open space, with often generous separation distances to existing neighbouring properties and the level of containment by existing boundary treatments, trees and soft landscaping. It's not considered that there would be a detrimental impact in terms of daylight and sunlight, loss of privacy or overlooking to existing neighbouring properties. It is, of course, however, recognised that inevitably the proposal reduced the views and rural outlook, recognised that it is obviously enjoyed currently by existing neighbouring surrounding occupiers. In terms of construction impacts, it is recognised again these are inevitable, although not permanent in nature. A construction method statement and management plan would be required to be agreed by condition if members are minded to grant planning permission, which would mitigate the construction impacts. Conditions 12 and 13 relate to that. So in terms of highways, we've obviously gone through the various mitigation there and plans for the junctions. As I said before, the application is accompanied by a stage 1 road safety audit, and also a transport assessment, which also has a more recent addendum attached to it, and also a residential travel plan. It's acknowledged that the site is located within a sustainable location with good access to local facilities, shops and services. Car parking and cycle parking will be provided in accordance with the latest EPOA car parking standards at the time of the reserve matters submission. In terms of transport movements to and from the site, it's recognised that these will be increased. However, no objection has been received from the Council's Highway Authority, subject to conditions and contributions being secured to mitigate these impacts, along with the necessary junction improvements. The development would also provide local cycling and walking improvements, along with improvements to a section of London Road and Western Road, which I mentioned before, and we've already discussed. Again, you've got the bus service enhancements there and the £1.3 million contribution to improve the bus route there, and also a travel plan would be secured. Therefore, it should be reiterated that the focus of the development is more on sustainable modes of transport, encouraging a modal shift away from the reliance upon cars, and by encouraging people to access the town centre on foot or by bike rather than drive. In terms of flood risk and drainage, the site sits within flood zone 1, which is the lowest probability of flooding. The applicant has worked with Essex County Council, who are the lead local flood authority, to ensure that adequate flood risk and drainage measures are installed to restrict and control surface water runoff to greenfield rates. And this would be done by controlling discharges to the Mount Nessing Brook, which forms the site's western boundary. As I said before, there'll be large subspasins located within that western parcel. There's also possibility for other drainage there, which will come through a reserve matter stage, but there could be the potential for swales, permanent paving, rain gardens and the like. Additionally, I've put here just to touch on section 5.9 being the relevant part of the report and the various conditions that are set out that all relate to drainage. No objection has been received from the lead local authority, and in terms of Anglian Water, they raised no objection, and it's just important to note that they would require 15-metre buffers around both of the existing pumping station, which is located on the western side of Courtlands, and the one proposed on site, to avoid any risk of nuisance. The applicant is aware of that and they've agreed to condition 43, which controls that. The next issue, ecology, biodiversity net gain, B&G, impact on local SSSI sites. So the application is accompanied by a series of ecological surveys, appraisals and assessments, which are set out on pages 25 and 26. These have all been reviewed by Place Services Ecology, who have raised no objections, subject to conditions. In terms of biodiversity net gain, or B&G, there will be predicted 15.8 increase in habitat units, 11.3% increase in hedgerow units, and 11.7% increase in watercourse units across the site as a result of the proposed development. All B&G would take place on site rather than off site. The proposal therefore would exceed the mandatory 10% B&G requirements. Natural England have been consulted on the application. They've raised no objection, and they state that the proposal would not have any significant adverse impacts on statutory protected nature conservation sites or landscapes. The proposal would include mitigation measures for priority species and would include the introduction of public open space, the retention of existing trees, new hedgerow planting, with some being retained, retention of a pond and a watercourse, the provision of a large area for habitat creation and enhancement, which would include a reptile relocator area, and the provision of a connective habitat in the form of the green corridors, which would run through the site. Condition 33 would secure the installation of bird, bat and swift nesting boxes on the proposed dwellings, and there's various other conditions on there which would relate to ecology. In respect of energy and sustainability, this would be a no gas development, and therefore then there are no gas boilers which would be installed, nor would there be any mains gas connection to any of the dwellings, and this would be secured via condition 36. In terms of the historic environment and the impact on Great Cowbridge Grange Farm, which as I said before is a non-designated heritage asset, the proposed development would result in a low-medium level of harm to the setting of the farm itself. However, it has been considered that the public benefits of the scheme would significantly outweigh the identified low-medium scale harm to the setting of the farm itself, as identified within the report. In respect of agricultural land, the proposed development will result in the loss of approximately 25 hectares of best and most versatile Grade 3A agricultural land. So therefore, this matter would need to go into the planning balance when members are weighing up the planning considerations. And finally, infrastructure in section 106. I'll go on to that on the next slide. So the slide before you sets out the monetary and non-monetary contributions which have been agreed by the applicant, and these would be secured by a section 106 agreement if permission was granted. So I'll start there with the non-monetary contributions. So the proposed development will secure 50% affordable housing, and this would equate to 240 units of the 480 unit scheme. These would be a mix of unit sizes. And of the 50% affordable housing, 43 of these would be for affordable rent, 37% shared ownership, 10% social rent, and 10% as first homes. Also there, put in about non-monetary contributions would be the footway and cycleway improvements, again, which would be funded for by the developer and would be agreed in consultation with the highway authority, the bus infrastructure enhancements, and finally, the 30-year maintenance and monitoring of the approved biodiversity net gain plan. With regards to the monetary contributions, with regard to education, a secondary contribution of secondary education contribution of £2.5 million has been requested by Essex County Council. No further education contributions were requested by Essex in their consultation response on the application. They did, however, request that review mechanisms are secured via the Section 106 to enable the demand for primary school places to be considered as the development progresses. A response was received from Essex County Council following the publication of the committee report and in response to an officer query in respect to the different requests made by the County Council in respect to the education contribution requirements within the locality. And this response is within the on the update sheet itself, so if I could just draw your attention to that. So going back to the review mechanism, officers have sought legal advice in respect to this, which has confirmed that the request isn't still compliant. The advice states that if the requested review mechanism were to be included in the Section 106 agreement, the associated planning permission may be vulnerable to legal challenge, and there's also no policy basis for imposing a review mechanism. Therefore, for these reasons and in light of Essex County Council's consultation response, other than the secondary contribution, no other education contributions or a review mechanism is required or requested in this particular instance. The proposal will also secure monetary contributions in respect of healthcare, employment skills, bus service contributions, open space, health and well-being, which relates to the local delivery pilot, as well as travel plan monitoring. And you can see on the screen that totals just over £5.1 million. So in terms of the planning balance, this slide sets out what officers consider to be the positives and negatives of the proposed developments. So I'll start with the positives. First of all, you can see there on the left-hand side. In officers' opinion, the proposal constitutes the appropriate development of grey belt land and complies with the golden rules, which carries significant weight in favour of the proposal. The council's own evidence base weighs very heavily in favour of the proposal. The site does not strongly contribute to greenbelt purposes A, B or D, and this carries significant weight in favour of the application. Whilst the site does contribute to purpose C, encroachment, this purpose does not need to be considered in the definition of grey belt. In terms of deliverability, as I said before, the proposed development would provide a significant amount of market and affordable housing, 50% affordable housing, within a 5-year deliverable time frame, and this would significantly assist the council's 5-year housing land supply, which is currently only at 1.88 years. The applicants have advised that the first occupancy of homes could take place in 2028, with completion by approximately 2033, and this carries significant weight in favour of the application. In addition, the environmental and local community benefits, including the economic benefits, weigh moderately in favour of the application. We've touched on these before, but briefly, these comprise of the creation of 9.4 hectares of open space, which will be for the benefit of both existing and future occupiers, the provision of formal and informal space, and 2 new equipped play facilities, the provision of an all-weather surface for the existing public right-of-way, with additional various leisure walking paths provided throughout the site, which would improve and extend the existing walking choice on offer. The increases in biodiversity net gain, which we've already gone through, and also the benefits would, in terms of local community benefits, would also be the delivery of the local cycling and walking infrastructure improvements along London Road, including the new shared pedestrian and cycleway on the northern side of the site, the signalisation of the London Road Mount Lessing Road junction, provided a toucan crossing, the bus service enhancements and contribution, which would improve frequency, accessibility and bus routing. Also, positive improvements, including obviously improve the increased expenditure for local shops and services locally, and the provision of an employment and skills plan, which would support the ongoing delivery of local employment training courses and apprenticeships, together with a financial contribution to broker job opportunities from the development. Another positive would be that the fact that the site is also located within a sustainable location. And turning to the negatives there on the right hand side of the screen. So negatives are the significant localised level of harm to the openness of the green belt, which is afforded substantial negative weight against the proposal. The local level of harm to the landscape. The low-medium level of harm to the setting of the non-designated heritage asset, Great Cowbridge Grange Farm. And the loss of best and most versatile agricultural land, Grade 3A land, which carries medium negative weight against the proposal. Therefore, to conclude, officers consider that the proposed development would have a significant, albeit localised, impact on the openness of this undeveloped greenbelt site. However, officers consider that the proposal constitutes the appropriate development of grey-belt land. In addition, the proposal complies with the Golden Rules, which carries a significant weight in favour of the grant of permission, in accordance with paragraph 158 of the NPPF. The development is therefore not considered to be inappropriate. Whilst the development would result in a low-medium level of less than substantial harm to the setting of the non-designated heritage asset, officers consider that this harm would be significantly outweighed by the public benefits of the scheme. However, should members consider that the development is inappropriate, paragraph 153 of the NPPF is relevant and permission should not be approved except in very special circumstances. It is, however, considered that all of the harms identified and as previously set out are, in the opinion of officers, clearly outweighed by the very special circumstances that have been evidenced in this application. The proposals would therefore not therefore conflict with the safe policies of the Basildon local plan when taken as a whole. Within this overall balance, it's considered that national greenbelt policies do not provide a clear reason for refusing the development, and officers considered that the adverse impacts of granting permission in this particular instance do not significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. Therefore, for these reasons, the application is recommended for approval, subject to no calling powers being exercised by the Secretary of State, subject to the completion of the Section 106 agreement, and also the conditions set out on pages 124 to 142 of the agenda, plus the 2 amendments within the update sheet. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise Cook, for a very comprehensive report. Thank you. I'll open it up to members for clarifications. Any members? Kevin?
If no one else will. Yeah, just can you clarify the bus route, 1.3 million, how long that's going to last? When is that? I sound like a broken record here because I say this every planning meeting that's coming up lately, but we keep on having it on there and we never really get the... And then who, basically you won't know the answer, but who will be paying for it after that? Or does it get taken away? And when does that start? Does it start when the first houses start being built, or does it at the end of it?
So the bus infrastructure, the contribution itself would be secured prior to occupation, so that would be secured via the Section 106 agreement, and it would be, that money would be secured for a period of normally 5 years.
Is that the beginning of the second they start building? So that, say for argument's sake they build 50 houses and those people need a bus, would it start from then, or would it only start from when the 480 are complete, which means that the first 100 or so houses won't have any buses for a considerable amount of time? Sorry.
Councillor Blake, at the moment, obviously we haven't done the heads of terms properly. What I will make a note of is that what we'll say is it's normally prior to the first occupation, and on page 32, what we've just put is prior to occupation. It should be prior to the first occupation. So I will amend that, and we'll deal with that at the end of the heads of terms when we finally draft the terms to go in the 106 agreement. But I can add the word first to that. That's fine.
So what we're saying, from the very first house that was put in there, that £1.3 million for the bus service will be put in place. And can you tell me, does the 5 years start from that point?
It would be, so the heads of terms will be prior to the first occupation of the post-residential development. Basically, you'll be a phased payment of the financial contribution, and those financial contributions usually last between 3 and 5 years, depending on, so basically, and that'll be, so it'll be 1.3 million either running out at 3 years or 5 years, and it'll be set out by the Highway Authority and how they want the bus service to run. So they normally last for 5 years, so that figure will be spread across the 5 year period. And what they normally do is the fact that that gives the bus service enough time to become effective, and after 5 years the bus service then becomes effective, and they then are normally then generated by passengers using that bus service. So it's a way of just increasing the bus service straight away and paying up front, so we have a starter position.
I'm concerned about the word normally 5 years. Normally, in normal planning applications, we actually do know it is 5 years. Can we confirm whether it is 5 years or 3 years? Because we've got to make a decision on it.
I mean, what it'll be £1.3 million over 5 years. Yep.
Another question, yes.
One as well. The other point I want to make, the positives that you put up there, and again, I'm sounding like a broken record. You said this last time, the positive is the 5 year delivery time. It's not guaranteed. You can't guarantee that. we've had this debate already. If they don't deliver it in 5 years, there's absolutely nothing that you can do about it. If I remember right from last time, we can't do anything about it. We can ask them, we hope it's a deliverable, but it's not actually that they can actually guarantee delivering it. Unless I was mistaken last time and misunderstood.
We can't guarantee it. We're obviously not the ones building it, so you know that there obviously isn't that guarantee that I can provide you with. Unfortunately, all I can say is obviously Redrow are a large housing developer. They've got a lot of experience, so you know if that gives you any sort of reassurance, I don't know. But in respect of deliverability, that's dealt with on page 116. So we're looking at a build-out rate of approximately 75 dwellings per year. And there's some information there that has come from Redrow.
Personally, I don't give a monkey's which company are building it. That's not what we're here for. We're not worried about what companies are building it or not building it. That's not a planning consideration. I'll wait till after they finish talking.
Yeah, so in terms of timings, the developer, if obviously outline permission was granted, you've got conditions 1, 2 and 3, which all relate to the timings of reserved matters submissions as well. So the developer would obviously need to adhere to those conditions and ensure that the development comes forward within those timeframes. So there's also that to consider as well for an outline application with these matters reserved.
Again, not enforceable as far as I'm concerned. Okay, that's my. It keeps on coming up every time, and I will keep on repeating it. Just another thing that you mentioned. Can you say how much was good agricultural land grade 3, please, for me? Confirm that again, please.
That comprises 25 hectares.
Thank you. So that's a fair bit. So when we say in the application, we actually say this is development on grey belt, has been now designated grey belt. Are you telling me that 25 hectares of good agricultural land grade 3 is grey belt?
So the grey belt comes into obviously the principle of the development itself. So we obviously have to go through the assessment to get to the stage of whether or not it's grey belt. So that relates to the actual green belt purposes. So they're set out obviously within the report. So just to be clear, the definition there is set out of grey belt is set on page 45. So basically the definition is land which does not strongly contribute to purposes A, B or D in terms of their greenbelt purposes, which are set out on paragraph 143 of the MPPF. So, yeah, obviously we need to use that definition, go through, assess the purposes. We've obviously done that assessment, and yes, officers agree that this is a grey belt site, so agricultural land can consist of grey belt in that sense.
Councillor Myers.
Thank you. I'll move a bit closer. Thank you, Chair. Going on to that agricultural side of things as grade 3A of best and valued agricultural land, even if this site wasn't green belt or grey belt, there are still policies in the MPPF that do protect best and versatile agricultural land, such as paragraph 187B, which and it has a footnote on it as well. So it says that any development should contribute and enhance the natural environment and the benefits of the best and most versatile agricultural land. And then on page 54, footnote 65, where significant development of agricultural land, areas of poorer quality should be preferred to those of higher quality. So could you ask why this particular land that's best and valued is being looked on at the moment rather than poorer agricultural land that may constitute grey belt elsewhere?
Okay, so 187 has been updated by the new MPPF, which is published. So if I just read out 187, the relevant point. So it states that planning policies and decisions should contribute to and enhance the natural and local environment. B talks about recognising the intrinsic character and beauty of the countryside. And then if you go down to the footnote there at the end of that section, which, let's just see where that goes back to. It says here, where significant development of agricultural land is demonstrated to be necessary, areas of poorer quality land should be preferred to those of a higher quality. Do you want to say anything else?
Councillor Myers, sorry, the 187B says recognise intrinsic character, beauty of the countryside and the wider benefits of the capital, natural capital and ecosystem service, including economic and other benefits of the best and most versatile agricultural land and of trees and woodland. That's the decision to contribute to enhance the natural environment, local environment by. So 187B, that's what it says. And the council's addressed that point in the report. So it doesn't say that we shouldn't grant planning permission for that. The footnote at the bottom, 65, relates to paragraph 188, which says plans should distinguish between the hierarchy of international, national and locally designated sites, allocate land within the least environmental or amenity value where consistent with other policies in this framework. And then it goes down to 65 footnote, and that's the where significant development of agricultural land is demonstrated to be necessary. It's to be demonstrated to be necessary. Areas of poorer quality land should be preferred to those of a higher quality. And it said take a strategic approach to maintaining and enhancing networks of habitats and green infrastructure, and plan for the enhancements of natural capital at a catchment or landscape scale across local authority boundaries. So in terms of 187B, that's planning policy enhance the natural environment. So we've looked at that in terms of paragraph 187B. And that's dealt with in the report.
Thank you. I have read the full officer's report and have the MPPF here as well. On 187B, obviously trying to find in the report wording on agricultural or agriculture, it isn't in the report. That's why I wanted to clarify about when I say it says in the officer's report that the loss of most versatile once in paragraph 1.9, but nowhere else in the report as part of a summary of loss of farmland. So I wanted to clarify whether or not 187B recognises the intrinsic character and beauty of the countryside and the wider benefits of natural capital and ecosystem services, including the economic and other benefits of the best and most versatile agricultural land.
If you turn to page 108, the agricultural land proposed development would result in loss of approximately 25 hectares of subgrade 3A good quality agricultural land, best and most fertile agricultural land, grades 1, 2 and 3. Therefore, development would result in loss of best and most versatile agricultural land. This matter would need to go into the planning balance when members are weighing up the planning considerations for this application, and that's set out at 5.16.1. That's addressed in the report there. 15.16.1. It was part of the balance that you take into consideration. and that's set out in the negative up there by the case officers spelled that out. Item 4 on the negative side of the slide in front of you.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm here in my capacity as a group leader. I didn't intend to speak on this, and I've not been lobbied. This is clearly simply a question for clarity, because I have a Red Road development in my ward and division.
Chair, can you tell me what right I've got?
Group leader.
I've got a lot of time for you, as you know, Kerry. But I'm not aware you can do that.
Apologies, Councillor Smith, you're down to speak on item number 5, not on this item, I'm afraid. So we won't.
I asked the officer next to you the other day.
Councillor Smith, carry on, you did.
Thank you. As I say, I'm not making a party political point, as I have a Red Road development in my division and in previously my former ward still boundary changes. It didn't come to planning at phase 1A, only the outlining application and subsequent planning applications. And one of the residents have been stung now with is this tax. Red Road gets this company called Trinity to charge the householders there. So that's the preamble. Now my question is, does this planning committee have the authority to say to Red Road, if this was granted planning permission, you're not hitting the new householders with this tax to cut the grass? They've paid their council tax, they will be paying their council tax, as my residents are in Wesley Green, but they shouldn't be paying their council tax, and this tax to Trinity to cut the grass, it's not fair.
Councillor Smith, the issue is that these new developments are firstly majority of the highway within is not adopted highway. So the Essex County Council, as the current highway authority, are not required to upgrade the highway. And in terms of the open spaces, play spaces, leaps and neeps that are there, these are not adopted by the council either. So those would be required to be undertaken. The maintenance would be required to be taken by the developer themselves. So it's because the council no longer adopt open space, and the county council no longer adopt highways within development sites. So that's the reason why they're placed on them, and they're not placed on them for any other reason apart from that. So they're not paying twice. They're not. It's not as if we do. Okay.
Christine, I don't think we've got no jurisdiction on highways, have we? On planning?
Councillor Larkin, no, we haven't.
No, thank you. Okay, we've got no more clarification from members now, so we're opening it up to the public. What we've got each one of you, when we called, you come forward, you have 3 minutes to say what you'd like to say to the members here in the planning committee. Is that everybody okay with that? Fine. I'll call the first person to come along and speak, which is David Burgess, please.
Hi everybody, I'm going to talk about traffic concerns. London Road is a very busy main road with traffic coming in and out of town. London Road is already very congested at peak times at the Mount Nessing Road junction, and it is saturated at the Tye Common Road traffic lights. A very large new development of 480 houses will burden the area with an additional 800 plus cars. It will seriously slow the traffic flow on London Road as drivers turn in and out of the estate. The new traffic lights proposed on Mount Nessing Road junction will further constrain traffic as drivers navigate 2 sets of lights that will be very close together. it is highly likely that the proposed housing estate will be used as a rat run to avoid congestion at these lights, which is already extensive. The secondary access on Mount Nessing Road has no restrictions and therefore could be just as busy. It has a narrow humpback bridge with poor sight lines, entirely unsound for taking traffic from such a large housing estate. Transport Assessment Volume 1 states that Thai Common Road Junction is currently constrained and the ability to deliver any significant improvements is limited by the extensive available public highway. Furthermore, no assessment has been undertaken to determine the cumulative traffic effects of all developments that are being agreed, including London Road North, London Road South and Heath Close, which will likely generate an additional 1,500 cars. According to the environmental statement, construction is expected to take up to 8 years, although 5 years was said here, and construction traffic will further contribute to this traffic problem. Sustainable travel, frankly, what's been discussed is a joke. Both cycling and the number 9 bus are not alternatives for people commuting to work or for school runs with primary age children. Adverse weather conditions and shorter daylight hours are also barriers to both cycling and walking. The multiple planning applications in play should be considered as a whole by this council so that the infrastructure solution is cohesive with an overall master plan in place first. Without this coherent plan, this application is unsound and will have very disastrous consequences for the area. Policy BAS BE12 outlines that planning permission for residential development will be refused if it causes material harm or if it creates traffic danger or congestion. This development absolutely creates such danger and congestion.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. We now have Mark Fuller, please.
Councillors, I would like to make 3 points that should persuade you to reject this planning application. My first concerns healthcare. The response to this planning application from Mid and South Essex NHS was as follows. Excluding one, the GP practices in Billericay do not have capacity for the additional growth resulting from this development and cumulative development in this area. The development would have an impact on healthcare provision in the area where there is already a deficit of primary care facilities. If unmitigated, the development would be unsustainable. This is not my words, this is Mid and South Essex NHS. Let me just repeat that. If unmitigated, the development would be unsustainable. Planning obligations could be used to secure contributions to mitigate these impacts and make an otherwise unacceptable development acceptable in relation to healthcare provision. The development could generate approximately 1,152 new residents and subsequently increase demand upon existing constrained services. The NHS data shows there is currently an average of 2,356 patients per doctor in the 6 surgeries in Billericay. One of those surgeries will be closing on the 11th of March, which takes the average patients per doctor number to 2,828. My question to you is, how will the 1,152 new residents obtain a doctor's appointment? My second point is around education. Essex County Council's response to Basden Council in regard to this planning application points out that Quilter's infant and junior schools are already full in all year. Sorry, I'll start that again. Essex County Council's response to Basden Council in regard to this planning application points out that Quilter's infant and junior schools are already full in all year groups and a new primary school will be required to accommodate any more pupils. Furthermore, Billericay School and Mayflower are popular secondary schools that are full in most admission rounds. As in the primary sector, additional capacity will be required to meet the level of growth anticipated by this planning application. Essex County Council conclude with the following comment to Basden Council. If your council were minded to turn down the application, the lack of surplus early years and childcare and primary and secondary education provision in the area to accommodate the proposed new homes can be noted as an additional reason for refusal. So where will the children that will live in these houses be educated? My final point, very quickly. In the original application, objection to this development was permitted on the basis this land was classified as greenbelt. This clarification has now been changed by the NPPF and has now been designated grey belt. With this reclassification, there should be another public consultation that allows the public to reassess the application with new objection criteria. The above comments should be considered in the context of the other developments planned around Billericay, which will further exacerbate the points I've made regarding health and education. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mark. Can we now have Deborah Taylor, please?
Good evening. I'm against the proposed development based on the following. The land includes a significant amount of the currently best and most versatile agricultural land, categorised as subgrade 3A quality as outlined in the environmental statement. It provides local employment and produces valuable crop. The NPPF states that such land should be avoided for development. Losing the borough's farmland increases dependence on importing food, which makes us less sustainable and is bad for the environment. This is not poor quality agricultural land. It is biodiversity rich, open farmland and should remain so. When you consider the agricultural merits of the land, the fact that it has never been developed and that it has historically contributed well to the purpose of the Greenbelt, I find it incredible that all those values are being ignored in an attempt to downgrade it to Greybelt, conveniently to allow development. Matthew Pennycook, Minister Housing, stated in Parliament on the 17th of January, "We are maintaining the existing strong protections for the best and most versatile agricultural land, the land most important for food production. To approve this application would contradict his statement. I do not agree that this is a medium negative weight against, as stated in the planning balance that you showed us tonight. Furthermore, the public right-of-way of footpath 11 has open and rural aspect from Mount Nessing Road to Great Cowbridge Grange Farm, which will be lost forever. Instead, it is proposed to run in part through a vast housing estate and bisected by 3 roads, losing its visual amenity. The footpath is well used by locals, runners and dog walkers, and as such will be a huge loss to the community and detrimental to health and well-being. The infrastructure and delivery plan which accompanied the withdrawn local plan showed that Billericay already has a shortage of public open space when measured against its existing open space standards. This makes existing public rights of way very valuable as open space. The proposed green space to the west of the development is diminished because much of it is occupied by drainage basins. Moreover, the heritage setting assessment concludes that proposals would fail to preserve the special interest of the non-designated heritage asset Great Cowbridge Grange Farm, contrary to section 66(1) of the Planning Act 1990. Through changes in setting, GPA Advice Notice 3 considers setting the contributions to significance in terms of the heritage assets, physical surroundings, and in this case, these include green space, historic association and former use. Basildon Council recently announced it is protecting the borough's green spaces, but will it protect ours? Whereas our children may be grateful for housing because successive governments have failed to control demand, especially for social housing, our grandchildren may be more grateful that we choose to protect the food supply for this country. I ask you to reject this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah Taylor. Can we have County Councillor Richard Moore, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I represent the Bursted Ward and I'm here on behalf of the residents of Bursted Ward. At paragraph 1.7, it clearly states that, quote, in the opinion of officers, the proposed development constitutes development of grey belt land. This is again reinforced at paragraph 5.1.50, where it states that members should be reminded that officers' primary view is that the proposed development is on grey belt land. However, this is only an opinion. It is just their view. It is not fact. The MPPF, paragraph 11, states that, quote, plans and decisions should apply a presumption in favour of sustainable development. Paragraph 11b states that strategic policies in the framework that protect areas or assets of particular importance provides a strong reason for restricting the overall scale, type or distribution of development in the plan area. The policies referred to are those in the MPPF relating to habitats and or designated as sites of special scientific interest, land designated as green belt, local green space, national landscape and national park. Land north of London Road, Billericay is designated green belt and is therefore protected land within the policies of the MPPF. The MPPF defines grey belt as land in the green belt comprising previously developed land and or any other land that in either case does not strongly contribute to purposes A, B or D in paragraph 143. Grey belt excludes land where the application of the policies relating to the areas or assets in footnote 7 would provide a strong reason for refusing or restricting development. Whether this site does not strongly contribute to those purposes, the requirement to be classed as grey belt is entirely subjective, and officers have decided that our green belt land can be easily reclassified as grey belt. So let's look at the MPPF paragraph 143 in more detail. Purpose A, to check the unrestricted sprawl of large built-up areas. This site does today, in fact, contribute to checking unrestricted sprawl of the built-up area of Billericay towards Haverings, Gore and Hutton in Brentwood. Purpose B, to prevent neighbouring towns from merging into one another. The residents of Haverings Gore are particularly concerned that if this application is approved, this would be the start of Billericay merging with Haverings Gore and Hutton. Purpose D, to preserve the setting and special character of historic towns. The applicant's conclusion at paragraph 5.131 on Greenbelt purposes is that Billericay is not, and I repeat, is not a historic town, and therefore the site does not contribute to purpose D. This goes to show that the applicant and officers agreed with the applicant that purpose D does not apply because Billericay is not a historic town. Have the applicant and our officers never heard of the Mayflower? Of Christopher Martin, a Billericay resident sailing to America in 1620? Or are they choosing to ignore history in their desire to build over Billericay's greenbelt? Madam Chairman, Piggott and Company's National and Commercial Directory of 1839 clearly states that Billericay was a small market town. The market was held by charter granted in 1476 and held on Tuesdays, with a cattle fair being held in August and October. Officers and the applicant need to brush up on their GCSE history. Billericay is very clearly a historic town, and its history cannot be brushed away to find reasons to approve this application. The headline figure in the application is 480 houses, of which 240 will be affordable. With 50% affordable, you may congratulate yourselves on such a deal for the good of residents who desire an affordable house. You must ask yourselves, if this is approved, how long will it be before you have another application to reduce the 240 homes to a lower figure because of viability issues. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Richard Moore. Can I have Councillor Chris May, please, from Billericay Town Council?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening. Billericay Town Council Planning Committee has objected to all the iterations of this application, and I will attempt to summarise the grounds for our objections over time. First of all, this is inappropriate development on the Green Belt. The unjustified scale of this development in the Green Belt, where there are insufficient exceptional circumstances that outweigh the harm caused, that are fully evidenced and justified to allow development on this site. Specifically, the unacceptable loss of 25 hectares of high-quality agricultural land, the weak and contested evidence base, which is the 2023 LUC Greenbelt Survey, for the unjustified downgrading of Greenbelt to Grey Belt. Previously, the contribution of this land was always assessed as high or moderate. This land manifestly contributes strongly to the Greenbelt purposes A, B, C and D. BTC robustly objects and disputes the description of Billericay as a non-historic town. Billericay Town Council have published the Town Trail, which describes the 39 historic features in and around Billericay's conservation area. The surrounding green belt to the town contributes strongly to this historic setting, which is now under threat. Secondly, this development, in our view, is non-sustainable. Our chief concern is around road safety, in contravention of Para 115 of the MPPF. The siting of this development, being up to 2 kilometres distant from schools, town centre and station, will inevitably result in increased car journeys, 600 to 700 additional cars, this being the default mode of transport for residents. The increase in the number of cars entering and exiting the site via the 2 access points will cause major traffic issues, and this has not been, in our view, sufficiently addressed. The proposed traffic lighting at the junction of London Road and Mount Nessing Road will result in increased congestion, and it will encourage drivers coming from or travelling to destinations west of Billericay to use the estate main drive as a rat run, resulting in severe road safety issues for the residents. BTC would strongly urge the addition of mitigation measures to offset this risk, whatever measures, speed bumps, width restriction or whatever. Mount Nessing Road Railway Bridge constitutes a severe highway safety issue, with the inevitable increase in pedestrian footfall using this dangerous, very narrow footpath, which also has not been addressed in the proposal. This Victorian structure was designed when Mount Nessing Road was a country lane, and the only traffic was the occasional horse and cart. It is not fit for purpose in the 21st century Billericay, serving as a main artery to the west of the town. Pavements too narrow for 2 pedestrians to pass without stepping into the road, not wide enough for pushchairs, let alone wheelchair users. Unless mitigation of this road safety issue is addressed, the council would have blood on its hands following an inevitable pedestrian accident. Insufficient supporting infrastructure. S106 provision for school places is insufficient to meet the demand for 600 to 700 expected additional children.
Can I ask you, you've had your 3 minutes, but I will let you continue if you've just got something else. You finished, yeah?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chris May. Mike Doyle, please.
Thank you. Good evening. the previous people have actually explained 90% of everything that I got on my paperwork anyway. Suffice to say that the people that carried out the environmental inspections and risk assessments, etc., leave a lot to be desired. As an ex-consultant for health and safety, environmental, and the rest of the stuff that you might want in quality, I find that the assumptions that they have made have all been done during the years 2021, 22 and 23, which was the height of COVID, which there was only 80% less people out on the roads, being indoors, stuck indoors, so your air admissions were a lot less. And I think that the way they've taken some of their readings leaves a lot to be desired, and it should be redone. Other people have gone through the GP practices. If you look at the graphs that are within these environmental papers, there are so many to be established pieces within it that nobody has yet addressed. And I can't for the life of me see how a planning committee can actually make an assessment of whether to build houses when A, the infrastructure is not there. That can be proved by the lack of policing, it can be proved by the lack of medical facilities. All this has been discussed earlier by the last 7 people. So with that in mind, I won't even go into the freedom of access, where people have got their pathways that they can walk down, take their dogs for a run. Even now we've got the builders that have put in the planning permission applications. They have already partitioned off some access so people cannot get into the field to be able to take a dog for a run or to get to the public footpaths. That's been like that for a year and nobody seems to want to do anything about it. So that is my objections, including the objections of all the other people that are here earlier. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Michael. Can I ask Vanessa Carter, please?
Working across multiple devices due to printer problems. Oh. Yeah, okay. The proposed housing is not in a sustainable location. Primary access on London Road is on the western edge of town and not near any essential services such as schools, GP surgeries, the high street or station. Car journeys will be inevitable for any residents as it is beyond the widely accepted 15-20 minute walk to most facilities. Based on Google Maps, it's a 25-minute walk to Quilter School, 30 to Billericay School, 30 to High Street and 25 to Western Road GP Surgery. Brightside School is 1.6 miles away with no additional parking. Journeys will be even longer, even further inside the estate. Furthermore, the Humpback Railway Bridge on Mount Nessing Road has an extremely narrow pavement, so completely unsuitable and dangerous to walk, especially with children. As the site is mostly uphill all the way from London Road into Billericay Centre, cycling is highly unlikely to be a mode of travel. And the number 9 bus does not even go directly to the high street. Car trips will be necessary for school runs, commuters and trade businesses. Therefore, presumption should not be in favour of this development as it's not in a sustainable location. Moreover, affordable housing at 80% private rental rate and 30% for shared ownership on housing association lists still requires typically above average income. Basildon Council's housing strategy identifies that many people in the borough cannot afford rents any higher than 60%, so even affordable housing will be unaffordable. As we've seen with Maitland Lodge, after 2 years, the developer tried to reduce the affordable housing down from 45% to 15%, although claiming non-viability, although that's withdrawn from now. The developer at Shoebury Ness also reduced theirs down to 7%. It's highly likely that other developers will be following suit and claiming non-viability too. The South Essex Housing Market Assessment recommends that due to changing demographic in Basildon, that 14% of market homes are one bed. However, the proposal is from 0 to 10%. It will not support the needs of the next generation trying to get on the housing ladder. Instead, the proposed housing mix is overinflated for executive homes, primarily for London in-migration. There is a consistent supply of around 300 houses in Billericay. There is not a shortage of housing, over 1,200 houses have been approved to be built on Greenbelt already, which has increased the 5 years supply. Permissions are now likely to exceed over 8,000 versus the 6,200 target. Of course, the excessive government target is the main issue. To conclude, there has been 686 objections to this application, such as the strength of opposition and level of concern the impact of such a huge development will have on southwest Billericay. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa Carter. I have Councillor Schrader who wants to speak. Did you want to... You speak instead, Councillor Bagger.
No, Chairman, I am looking to speak in additionality, and if you can't let me, as per the discussion we had earlier, then in the capacity as group leader, which you very kindly let the other group leader speak, I should have the same courtesy. Thank you.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. As group leader, you can speak, yes. But even as group leader, next time, if you ask to speak a week in advance, okay? And then it doesn't muddy the waters, okay?
Absolutely, Madam Chairman. You have my utmost apologies for not being able to let you know earlier.
Accepted.
Sorry, but can I confirm, is it a week in advance? I only thought it was a couple of days.
No, it's a week, and then it's Monday is the last cut-off
Sorry,
point.
I misunderstood. I thought it was 2 days prior to the meeting, not a week before.
No.
Can the officer confirm that, please?
Yeah, it's actually, the deadline will be 5 p.m. Monday before the 2 days before the meeting.
So 2 days, not a week.
So the agenda is published a week before the meeting, so at that point you can register.
But to indicate to speak, it's 2 days, not a week.
The deadline is 5 o'clock on the 2 days before.
Thank you. Just want a clarification.
Thank you, Councillor Blake. You always like to make me look wrong, but I thought it was a week.
Facts. Just talking about facts.
Yes, okay, thank you. Councillor Schrader.
Well, thank you for that. Well, I mean, it seems pointless to even mention this, given the stance that the council now appears to have adopted in respect of Greenbelt. But first and foremost, this is an application in the Greenbelt, so should be refused. The very special circumstances, I would suggest, are spurious. We all know land should only be released as part of a local plan, which this council is currently developing, but we seem to have stopped caring about that process. It's all being reclassified as grey belt, even though this policy area is ill-defined, and further evidence ought to have been commissioned following formal introduction of the policy by the Labour government in the changes to the MPPF in December. Instead, officers appear to be reclassifying Greenbelt as grey belt, I would suggest somewhat on the fly. As the officer made clear, it is open to the committee to determine this development doesn't utilise Greybelt and refuse permission to build on what is 25 hectares of the best and most versatile agricultural land, currently productive farmland, and Councillor Myers referred to the relevant section of the NPPF. Essex Highways believe 480 new properties, so approximately 1,500 new residents in circa 800 additional cars, presents no problems for the A129 London Road, a busy main road prone to flooding and which, as Mr Burgess said, experiences severe congestion at peak times at the Mount Nessing Road junction and Tyre Common Road, Western Road traffic lights. I'd have thought it was obvious hundreds of cars turning in and out of this new estate will exacerbate these problems, and you might think a site at the very western edge of town, considerable distance from essential services like schools, doctors, surgeries, shops, etc., would make additional vehicular traffic inevitable. The proposed mitigations are not very convincing. I'm not sure I'd personally fancy cycling uphill into town, but maybe some of you are made of sterner stuff. Nevertheless, you'd be forgiven for questioning whether this is really a sustainable location. But thank goodness we've got county engineers with all those letters after their names to reassure us that we can safely disregard our lived experience and the evidence of our own eyes. After all, what do we know? We only live here. But the good news is we'll have years of disruption while the mitigations are put in place. And thank goodness we have all this cycling infrastructure coming in. It's what we've all been crying out for, obviously. The report says nothing about new schools, GPs, etc., bearing in mind Quilters is oversubscribed and Brightside is over 1.5 miles away. Similarly, the GP surgery at South Green is about to close, imposing additional pressures on the remaining surgeries, including Western Road. The report is similarly unconcerned with the threat of coalescence between Billericay and the village of Haverings Grove in the borough of Brentwood, inviting urban sprawl and closing the green gap that keeps our communities separate and distinct. As Mrs Taylor said, the entire rural vista that traditionally greeted both residents and visitors alike will be defaced forever, while the nearby public footpath will see green fields, mature trees and ancient hedgerows mutated into a mere alleyway winding through a dense housing estate. The historic rural setting of Billericay as a town seems not to matter. Finally, the scheme will do nothing to reduce our housing waiting list. The proposed housing mix is 80% high-end 3 to 5 bed houses. Nobody on our Home Seekers Register is getting a look in. They're never going to come within 100 miles of getting one of these, whether they're held back for borough residents for a year or 100 years. These homes will be catering to inward migration from London, nothing more. We're in the business of importing well-heeled Londoners, not housing our own. I urge colleagues to refuse this application and resist the apparent determination to overdevelop our borough. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Schrader. Now call Councillor Baggott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. How many of the people sitting here at some point have sat in a traffic jam or snarled up in traffic and made the comment either in their head or to their companion, who designed this? It must have been somebody sitting in an ivory tower somewhere far, far away that doesn't understand the area, doesn't understand the roads. Why don't people actually get local knowledge to actually put these things into place? And here we have a committee that has the opportunity to listen to local knowledge, listen to local people before coming to a decision. Because the principle of proper planning should be how a development complements the existing community and enhances it, not about diminishing and marring a community that is already there. Now, I visited the site last week. It was very clear the negative impact that the development would have for those existing residents where their back gardens are going to be built upon. I know that views don't count, but there is the There is a number of dog walkers, for instance, in the area that were enjoying the entire fields and everything else, which will not be there. It doesn't matter how much of a footpath you build, it doesn't alter the fact that a big field, walking your dog, is a completely different experience. The development itself, which is within Greenbelt, should itself exclude it from consideration in the first place. And once upon a time, this council actually put infrastructure first. That was the core principle when we were developing the local plan. And what we have seen over the last 2 or 3 years is development creep. And as has been mentioned by other people, we have other sites that are coming in. And gradually and surely, the strain on the already overcrowded infrastructure of Billericay is being pushed to breaking point. The other issue that I didn't see covered was the fact that, and as we know, things change with the developments. A developer will look at viability, they will make changes. 480 homes is only 20 homes away from actually the point of having a potential traveller site, the limit there being 500. So what mitigation is being put in that if the developer suddenly increases beyond the 500, what reassurance will residents have that that would not then trigger an influx of a potential traveller site attached in addition to what's being done? The Humpback Bridge was actually mentioned. That's going to be a lot of workload traffic. What impact assessment has been done on the Humpback Bridge and its capacity and ability to take the increased traffic and the increased loads, given that it's over a railway? A catastrophe were that not to be addressed. The traffic lights and pedestrian crossings have been discussed, but nobody has actually looked at the situation on Sun Corner, where exactly the same situation is there, and all that does, especially during school times, is snarl the traffic. And the healthcare issues have already been covered by other colleagues. With South Green closing, what we're talking about here is having an additional 3,229 patients put into an area where we're now proposing having an additional 1,000 residents and that will already exacerbate an already stretched health system. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Baggott. Ken Sharp, please.
I want to refer back to the Green Belt, if I may. And I apologise if I'm repeating what some other people have said, but I think it needs to be really emphasised. The proposed site north of London Road is Green Belt, as defined by Basildon Council's SAVE policies. There are no very special circumstances to justify harming the openness and permanence of the current site by building 480 houses there. The land provides a natural divide between Billericay and Hutton and respects their individual identities. If approved, it would contribute to changing the nature and environment of the Billericay-Hutton border forever, and this weighs heavily against the proposal. This development, and I must say together with others proposed in the area, would have an urbanising effect, changing the nature of the current open countryside. It would completely change the character of the existing area. The saved policy of the previously adopted local plan states that planning permission for new residential development will be refused if it causes material harm to the character of the surrounding area. The new local plan has not yet been finalised. Why is this being considered prior to the new local plan being agreed? This land, back in 2017, scored highly in the Greenbelt Review, which found it contributed strongly to checking unrestricted sprawl and safeguarding the countryside from encroachment. The more recent Greenbelt study concluded that this part of Greenbelt land contributed to preventing neighbouring towns merging and to safeguarding the countryside. The Greenbelt is central to the special character of Billericay and its historic setting. This part of the Greenbelt is well used, as we've heard, for good arable farming. It is not grey belt. To conclude, this proposal would be contrary to the NPPF Greenbelt policy, in that the application would constitute inappropriate development, which is harmful to the Greenbelt. I urge members to support this view and not approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken Sharp. Can I call Stephen Atkins, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm going to confine my statements to 3 points. The first is that the cumulative effect of planning permissions has to be considered. Planning permission was granted for 250 homes on Greenbelt land only last month. If approved, this development would nearly double that number. There are several other large-scale applications on Billericay Greenbelt still to be considered. The collective impact, not just of vehicles and traffic congestion, must be considered. Yes, growth is needed and inevitable, but it shouldn't be disproportionately allocated or come at any cost. Turning over valuable farmland is not the sort of growth that future generations need, and once done, is irreversible. On a more technical point, the grounds for classifying the site as Greenbelt are not sound. Grey belt is a term introduced by the government only a year ago, and they used it to describe those anomalies of green belt land that were of poor quality or ugly. They often gave the example of a petrol station in Tottenham as greenbelt land. I think we can all agree that the parcel of land is far from poor quality or ugly. Its farmed fields and public footpath provide great amenity to local residents who wish to enjoy the benefits of nature. If we don't protect sites like this, and only protect those ancient, dense woodlands, we are depriving our communities of the real and significant benefits of experiencing an open environment. At any rate, this parcel of land can only be properly classified as grey belt if it does not strongly contribute to either A, checking unrestricted sprawl, or B, preventing neighbouring towns merging. The Council's previous Greenbelt studies are contradictory on this point. The 2017 review concluded it did contribute to unrestricted sprawl and partially contributed to preventing coalescence with Hutton Grove. And the 2023 Greenbelt study finds the opposite: no contribution to sprawl, but contribution to coalescence. The contrary findings of these studies only go to prove that the issue is not clear yet the planning officer report seems to suggest that it is. Their report favours the 2023 report without, without any in-depth analysis as to why that preference has been made. To residents living in the area, it is clear to us that the site is strongly contributing to the prevention of both unrestricted sprawl and coalescence. If you take away the clear demarcation between our town and neighbouring Hutton Grove is significantly eroded. Given that proper assessment of the issue is so vitally important and clearly not clear-cut, this would be a good reason why the Planning Committee ought to have called in this application to the Secretary of State. This leads me to my final point. Even if this parcel could fairly be called grey belt land, it still cannot be built on unless the golden rules are complied with, one of which is that the proposed development must deliver new or improved green spaces within a short walk of new homes. The proposed development has demarked an area of open space, but this is at the far downhill end of the site, furthest away from existing homes. It is therefore not easy walking access for the people who currently use the site. And if I may just add, Madam Chairman, to the remarks that have been made earlier, as somebody who knows the area very well, particularly the road layout, I have to say that the Hump Bridge, which goes over the railway line very almost contiguous to this site, is without question a very dangerous situation at the moment. I don't think there have been significant accidents there, but with increased traffic, I think it is inescapable that there would be problems on that site. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Stephen Atkins. Can I call Richard Moore to read out a statement by Richard Holden MP, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm reading this on behalf of the Right Honourable Richard Holden MP, and he says, may I apologise for not being able to be with you in person, but House of Commons is sitting today. While a Member of Parliament has no role in decisions on local planning when contacted by residents, as these are matters for elected local councillors. When many local people approach me about a specific project, it is incumbent on me to send a message on their behalf. This is especially the case when it is targets from central government that are a large part of both the pressures and decisions being taken locally. The London Road development is yet another that moves inexorably in the direction of a conglomeration building that will in time lead to a continuous conurbation from Shoeburyness to Heathrow, with Basildon Council playing a pivotal role in enabling that. This proposal itself compounds issues regarding food security that have been expressed repeatedly at a national level, as it sees the further loss of 25 hectares of the best and most versatile agricultural land. This is on top of the recent decisions of this council that have already seen 50 hectares sacrificed. This is not grey belt by any stretch of the imagination, part of the broader Great Cowbridge Grange Farm heritage asset, as highlighted in the documents, stretching back over quarter of a millennium. Land as well as public rights of way crisscross these historic land holdings. Furthermore, the applicant's own impact assessment identifies 1,174 projected residents of the housing estate that would add pressure to local health services. With South Green Surgery set to close shortly, with the Health Secretary in Westminster refusing my pleas to do anything about it, we will see 3,229 patients redistributed, and this plan would see an additional 1,000 plus residents of this housing estate exacerbate that issue further. The loss of highly regarded agricultural land, the heritage asset of Great Cowbridge Grange Farm, and the implications of over 1,100 projected residents on local services, including schools, hospitals, doctor surgeries, should be a concern for us all. I urge councillors to consider all these facts and the message they're sending to central government about their plans to concrete over our towns and villages when they make their decision tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. on behalf of Richard Holden MP. Thank you. Can I now call Emma Gladwin for Red Row Homes, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. I'm Emma Gladwin, a Senior Planning Manager at Red Row. Our proposal provides an opportunity to deliver a significant number of much-needed new markets.
Excuse me, Emma, could you speak up a bit, please? Thank you.
A significant number of much-needed new market and affordable homes, 9.4 hectares of new public open space, 15.8% biodiversity net gain, and numerous other benefits on a grey belt site that meets the golden rules. As set out in your officer's presentation, our site does not strongly contribute to the Greenbelt purposes and meets the conditions of the Greybelt. In terms of whether Billericay is a historic town, the Greybelt test is whether this site strongly contributes towards preserving the setting and special character of a historic town. This site does not. The proposal meets the golden rules, providing 50% affordable housing, infrastructure improvements, and new public open space, which will be throughout the site. It is therefore appropriate development, with the balance weighing in favour of granting permission. The site does include Grade 3A good quality agricultural land, but this must be considered in the context of the significant housing need in Basildon, which will require the development of such land. To mitigate any impact on local roads, we will deliver significant improvements as set out in the presentation. The London Road Mount Nessing Road junction improvement is expected to reduce the waiting times compared to the current situation. In terms of the two new access points, these have both been designed to meet the highway standard, and our scheme has been fully assessed to ensure that it will not detrimentally impact the highway network. Essex County Council Highways fully agree with this, stating that we have provided a thorough and robust analysis of the highway network and provide a comprehensive list of improvements and mitigation measures to promote sustainable travel. In terms of other infrastructure, we will contribute over £2.5 million towards secondary schools, over £237,000 towards healthcare improvements, over £830,000 towards open space, culture, play and sports provision, and over £81,000 towards health and wellbeing programmes, amongst other contributions. Our scheme includes up to 240 affordable homes, including homes for social rent and affordable rent for those on your waiting list, and first homes and shared ownership to help first-time buyers and others to buy a home. To help meet local demand, we will have a local marketing strategy to give those in the area the first priority. With over 3,000 households on your housing register waiting for a home, and with average house prices more than 10 times average earnings in the borough, the demand for both market and affordable homes is significant. We will deliver a range of homes to meet some of this demand and give your residents a new place to live. Our scheme has evolved to respond to comments made by officers, consultees and residents. It's fully supported by all statutory consultees and is the result of many years of detailed and collaborative work with the Council. To conclude, this site does utilise Greybelt land, which is very clearly defined in the glossary of the NPPF. As your officer's report states, all the identified harms discussed this evening are also very clearly outweighed by the very special circumstances evidenced in our application, and it should therefore be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma Gladwin. I'd like to open it up to members now. Have we got any members that had any points before? Any members want to speak on this? Kevin Blake?
Yeah, you knew I would know. Just a couple of questions as well. And again, I have to say, the speeches tonight are absolutely second to none. And whilst I've been a ward councillor for 20 odd years, I learnt a couple of things on that. So it really is worth listening to them. Can an officer explain to me why the 2017 review was good and the 2023 wasn't? What actually changed now?
Councillor Blake, as part of any new review of any local plan, there is a requirement to readdress new evidence and produce new evidence for that local plan. because evidence becomes out of date. So the 2017, I mean, all our evidence bases for our local plan have been reviewed, and they've been mostly have been rewritten with evidence from consultants and external parties. So the 2017 local plan went alongside the local plan that was withdrawn in 2022. It was out of date by the time we got to 2022. Under the new local plan, we've commissioned a consultants LUC to review the Greenbelt, and the Greenbelt work they've done is what's in front of us. So in terms of decision making, we've utilised the 2017 and also the new evidence that's coming forward that will work towards a new local plan, which is 2023. So neither is good or bad, but there is a measurement of how you weight the information within that. And the report states whether we've used the 2017 evidence or the 2023 evidence. So I'm not sure whether it's good or what you said it's good or not, but that's where it is. So.
Didn't really understand that, but in all honesty, I just it's not telling me what's actually changed, other than you just want housing now. The government now want all these housing, so therefore that's why it's changing. Take a different view. If in 2023 it came out of date, why is it an assessment now? Why haven't we got an up-to-date one? And the reason why I say that, because if people remember a month or so ago, the Langdon development, Langdon Road development, when they had another, initially, and I will happily be corrected, there was initially going to be 500 houses on that, but due to the environmental impact assessment, an up-to-date one, that changed to 250. Am I correct? If that's the case, then why couldn't this be possibly done and we defer this application to an up-to-date assessment is done? Because it did change, please, and I say, I'm absolutely certain I'm correct on that, but please, I'll explain it again if you wish. We've done an environmental impact assessment at Langdon Road, an up-to-date one. Initially, there was 500 houses going to go in there. Eventually, there was 250 going in there. And these, so I'm asking, why can't we do an up-to-date environmental impact assessment on this, like we did for Langdon Road?
So we're here to deal with the application in front of us. The site that came forward under the Langdon Road was a part of the previous allocation from the withdrawn plan. It wasn't the whole allocation, and that's what came forward was 250 units of that allocation, not the whole allocation. What we've got, and that was from the withdrawn local plan. What we've got in front of you is a site which was subject to an allocation in the withdrawn local plan, and the number of units on this site have actually reduced from what the allocation originally had in the withdrawn plan. So there has been a reduction. And in terms of this evidence that LUC provided in terms of the Green Belt study was completed in advance of the change to the NPPF in 2024, and so therefore it didn't address the issues of grey belt at the time, because that wasn't known to the council at the time, and it dealt with the matters before that. LUC are refreshing that evidence to look at grey belt as a topic that will obviously bring forward the allocations in the emerging local plan.
Okay, thank you for that. I must admit, again, the issue came up about the Hump Bridge several times, and I thought, oh my God, yeah, I didn't realise that. It is an accident waiting to happen, and the amount of times I have to take the lead around from meetings and whatnot. It's a bridge that I cross over very slowly, go across every time very slowly, because and having all this extra traffic going on there will be really, really dangerous. And I agree, I can see an accident happening again. And I will say this: one of the big issues I've got, and just to show that it's non-political here, Essex County Council, again, we have it every time, and I'll say it every time, it's absolutely disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. They're not here tonight to represent that and listen to some of the things that these residents, and I think Andy Baggett mentioned it, let them hear what the local people know and assess that. What does annoy me is they do not do it. And I asked specifically whether they could, personally if they could, they didn't do it. They're running scared of this thing. My concern is, and the question I would love to have asked them, is that we've had Kennel Lane, 179, Matland Lodge, 47, Southend Road, 99, Wash Road, 400, Langdon Road, 250, Steeple View, 269, Ty Common Road, 58, Potash, 49, Langdon Road, 480, if London Road this goes through. The potential of another 800 that we've just been seeing. If you could ask them, an officer how they think the impact on the environment, on the highways, for all those developers that have come forward at once, because that's what basically we're talking about, I think they might have taken a different view, and they need to be challenged on that. And unfortunately, we are in a position that we can only judge it on each individual planning application. And I get that, but it just goes to show that all these people behind us, and have been to every other meeting, are really, and excuse my language, being crapped on, as far as I'm concerned, by Essex County Council, and us to a degree, for not taking on board what we know to be all these developments that are happening and will happen. It's a shambles, it's disgusting what's been going on, and counties should take a good hard look at themselves. And I honestly think, I feel sorry for the people. I don't live there, I live in sunny Pitsea. But however, the impact on these people is astronomical. And I can only see what some of the things that are coming forward is only going to get worse. We really need to get some balls, as far as I'm concerned, and start refusing these and take on the government's minister and see where we go. Because we really need to stop this greenbelt development, and I say greenbelt development because the grey belt doesn't exist as far as I'm concerned. As for the golden rules, I think the gentleman said earlier, there are some of those it doesn't apply to. It really doesn't. It's new to us. It's new to government. We've spoken to other authorities that are absolutely shocked that we are using the golden rules policy and the grey belt policy, because they haven't even introduced it yet. So we need to try and test out the government by actually acting the balls to refuse an application. When we said, and also the one point I want to make, the developer that came forward, and I have to say, I think it's absolutely amazing that how developers do this, I do not know, because on every planning application that we have, they always manage to be the last speaker. It's absolutely incredible. You know, everyone else speaks, but then the developers had the last say. They said they listened to the residents and all that. Did they really listen to the 600 odd residents that objected to this application? I think not. Thank you.
Well, Councillor Blake, I'll make sure that we try and twist it round the other way, but it is nice for the developers to hear what the members of the public says. Well, I'd just like to say, this report from the highways, we have to stick to, because that's their report. I can't do anything about it. They don't turn up for briefings. Well, you didn't either, did you? Well, of course there is. You can have your views heard. And you, hopefully, sometimes he might turn up. And I mean, let's put it this way. You know, why are county councillors not challenging him? He is county council. I'm not a county councillor. I can't challenge him, but county councillors can. And I just want to say, we have requested him to come all the time. We always do. We can't bring him here in chains under a police escort. No, but I'm just telling you what I feel. And there is nothing we can do about it on the grounds, because, you know, if you read the Highways report, everything that members have said here today is not on it. It's promoting it. But we can only get county councillors from Bursted area to go and have a go at him, you know, and say what the people here are feeling. I'm just answering your question, Kevin. Right, okay, yeah, well, I'm just telling you. Is there any other speakers? Alex.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, we've had a number of these grey belt sites come to planning now over the last couple of weeks, and you know, I'm not going to be able to say much different to what I've been saying the last few weeks now. That the rules have changed. That the MPF has now changed. These sites are being designated as grey belt, and the agenda has outlined the reasons why. I mean, we are a semi-judicial committee, as we always have been, and the reasons are given in the agenda that this is now considered grey belt land. It's no longer considered the same level of green belt as it was before, and in the agenda we've got additional documents for the appeals on Kennel Lane, Dunton Road, and Maitland Lodge. I mean, they were before this this rule change, and they were all lost on appeal, and the £5.2 million of monetary contributions that are coming via this application, including the 2.5 million for secondary school. You know, that is at risk of being lost if we lose this on appeal, as we have for many other applications of a similar size in the past. So, I mean, they're all things to consider. Councillor Moore said about the 240 affordable homes sort of being at risk of possibly changing if they bring a new application in, or if they vary the application in the future. You know, but 50% affordable is now another one of these new conditions in the MPF. So if they do change that, then that will be going against the new MPF. So that you know, they wouldn't have a leg to stand on with that. And so yeah, I mean, as I say, the rules have now changed. There's really not much more to say on that.
Thank you, Alex. Alex.
Other Alex. Thank you, Chair. I just had a quick query, because I know it happens every so often. But I just wondered when the next review of the 5-year housing land supply is going to be taking place. Is that in March? Is it normally in March?
The report will be produced alongside the housing delivery test for May, and the latest figure we haven't had a recent appeal, so we're still at 1.8, 1.87 that's in the report. So that's where we are at the moment. So the next one, but we're still going to be significantly off the 5-year housing land supply.
Okay, I would suggest a lot closer though. I still have issues here with the loss of this agricultural land, because that's not a green belt, grey belt policy at all. That's its own separate negative weight. It's some of these applications that have gone through have lost quite a substantial amount of grade 3A good quality agricultural land, which after being built on you will not get back. And with the government now changing its policies on land use for farming and trying to get away from importing and having domestic production, it seems to me that this particular 25 hectares, whilst not being overly large, still massively contributes to the policies of government for food security and production. So green belt and grey belt aside, and the need for housing aside, being built on prime best value agricultural land is, in my view, not a medium negative, but is a strong negative against this application. As colleagues have said, obviously the reports and everything else are a balancing exercise, and they're everyone's opinion and judgment. But I balance this not necessarily on the need for houses. I've always said that Basel needs homes. I just think it's choosing the right locations, and I think because of losing 25 hectares of highly and best valued agricultural land is not the location to be doing it. So for that reason, I'll be refusing this, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alex. Is there anybody else wish to speak on this? No? Okay, we'll go straight into the vote. Before we do, I'd like to obviously get back to probably David Burgess on infrastructure. And I do listen. Also, there was, I think it was Mike Powell on infrastructure. Councillor Schrader on infrastructure and highways, and Councillor Baggott and Stephen Atkins. These people were all talking about infrastructure. I have to go on this report for my vote on what highways tell me. And unless we can change this, I've got no reason why I shouldn't believe them. I can, like I think you said, Councillor Blake, you can speak to them in the face. And obviously Councillor Moore does, because he's on highways. If they won't come and we can't talk to them, what do we do? We have 3 golden rules which we have to follow now. Is it enough to refuse this application? I'd ask you not to shout out while I'm talking, please. We need homes in the area. That's the problem we've got. We've got thousands on our housing list, but we say, oh, they're not going to be for us, but they are, because most of the people can't afford. I use Sun Corner, and I've said before, it is a nightmare. But most of the houses in Billericay are originally, like Queen's Park, were built on Greenbelt, Waltham Forest, and that's what I'd like to say. There's nothing else I can say, really. So Kevin Blake.
Yeah, a couple of things on that. It isn't just about that. It's also about the grade 3 agricultural land that was an issue, 25 hectares. And you're saying about the golden rules. I don't know whether the people actually know, all of them know, but I don't be disrespectful to them. Could I remember you said at the planning meeting a little while ago that we as members should know exactly what they are. Could you explain to the members of the public here today what those 3 golden rules are, please?
You must know what they are, Councillor Blake. You were there.
I'm asking you to explain it.
Yes, no, I'm going to explain. I'll get the office to explain. Christine?
Okay, so the golden rules are set out at paragraph 156 of the MPPF. They relate to... So it states, where major development involving the provision of housing is proposed on land released from the Greenbelt through plan preparation or review, or on sites in the Greenbelt subject to a planning application, the following contributions, which are the golden rules, should be made. So 3 of those. A is affordable housing, which reflects either... Firstly, the development plan policies produced in accordance with paragraphs 67 to 68 of the framework, or secondly, until such policies are in place, the policy set out in paragraph 157, which refers to 50% affordable housing, which is what we've got here. Second point, securing the necessary improvements to local or national infrastructure. And thirdly, the provision of new or improvements to existing green spaces that are accessible to the public. New residents should be able to access good quality green spaces within a short walk of their home, whether through on-site provision or through access to off-site spaces. And that's the golden rules.
Correct. Thank you.
We go straight into the recommendation that planning application number 1901-725 out be granted outline permission subject to no calling powers being exercised by the Secretary of State, the completion of a 106 agreement to secure 50% affordable housing on site, together with financial contributions towards healthcare, improvement, education, local delivery pilot scheme, sustainable transport bus service, contributions, bus stop improvements, employment and skills, maintenance and monitoring of the approved biodiversity gain plan for a period of 30 years, open space, monitoring fees, payment of the local planning authorities' professional and legal fees associated with the completion of the SO 106 legal agreement as set out in section 5.19 and subject to the condition set out at the end of the report with any amendments that might be necessary up to the issue of the decision notice. All those in favour, please show. Any abstentions? Against? Refused? Thank you. The application is passed. Thank you. I think we'll have a 5-minute comfort break. Thank you. All right, was that Alex? I didn't let him get away with any shit tonight. I'm not. Right, after that, have a 5 minutes break. We go straight into item 5, which is 24014 full, construction of 2 number 2 retirement bungalows on south of Dry Street, Langdon Hills. And I think I can pass that over to you, David. Thank you.
Just a little technical problem at the moment. We're trying it, yeah. Thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah, so the application relates to land south of Dry Street, Langdon Hills in Basildon, and the proposal is for a construction of 2 retirement bungalows. So, the site itself is situated on the junction of Dry Street and Northlands approach in the Langdon Hills area. It's a kind of part of a former plotland enclave, if you want to call it that sort of thing, within the Basildon borough area, at the southwest part of the borough. The site is just an aerial view. As you can see, at the moment it's a vacant plot, hedging along the northern and western boundaries. Not shown on here, but immediately to the east is a relatively new redeveloped site with a larger detached property. You've got various scatterings of residential developments within this plotland area. There's a small farm kind of complex to the west along Dry Street, but the surrounding area, as you can see from the aerial view, is more kind of semi-rural in character. You've got Country Park to the north, including the woodland area, as you can see there, and paddocks. So it's quite a kind of open aspect to the overall area. So this is a few slides. So the top slides show the site from outside it, and the top left and central top ones are from Dry Street. So the hedging itself is kind of very mixed in quality. Along Northlands approach, it's a little bit more thicker, although this time of the year it's probably a bit worse. Within the site, there's some building material left from the developer while he was constructing the adjoining site, but it is just a vacant site, no buildings at all on it. So the proposal is for the erection, as mentioned, 2 retirement bungalows. There's a 3-bed bungalow on the southern part of the site with a 4-bed kind of L-shaped bungalow on the northern part of the site. Garden areas on the eastern parts of the plots. The access onto Northlands approach would be improved. New hard surfacing and parking provided, either in the form of a garage on the larger property, well, for both properties, 1 space per dwelling there, with additional spaces around the site. Sorry, the design of the buildings are kind of in appearance of a barn, I suppose that's what they're trying to look at. A brickwork plinth, black cladding with red plain tiled roofs. So quite traditional in their layout. This is the kind of layout themselves. The idea that the design of the layout is wheelchair accessible, so you can adaptable for anybody with ailments of that type, or as they age, they may need improved facilities. And so they're quite sizable properties. See, around about, what was it again now? It was 105 square metres for the smaller 3-bed and 131 square metres for the larger 4-bed. So if, so if we go to the, because in terms of the, if I go to the consultees we've had, no objections have been raised by various consultees. They're happy with the proposal in principle, subject to various conditions as set out in the report. In terms of neighbours, of the 19 neighbours notified, we've received one objection from a resident in the area concerned about the development of the Greenbelt site, but also 6 letters in support, mentioning various favourable aspects to the proposal, such as the need for bungalow type properties, downsizing of their properties here, and they feel the site is unkempt and that the design is in keeping. If we go to the key issues and considerations, so the main one is the impact of development on this Greenbelt site, particularly addressing the Para 154 exceptions. Then the recent revisions that you've discussed earlier on in terms of the grey belt, and finally the applicant has put forward various special circumstances you feel should be taken into account should you feel that the proposal does have some harm in the Greenbelt. So if we go to the first issue in terms of the various exemptions, paragraph 154 sets out a number of exceptions that would not be inappropriate in the Greenbelt, and one such is various infill developments in the village. The application site has been the subject of a number of applications. One in 2022 was for 5 detached bungalows on the larger site, including land to the south. At that time, the inspector, as you can see from the report, didn't consider the site to fall within the village, and officers are of the same opinion. There's no, the area is just a scattering of developments of buildings and not any central village core, and the inspector agreed with the officers in dismissing the appeal. There's also been a number of similar applications, as shown on this drawing, along Dry Street, Cherry Tree Cottage, a Well Green Cottage, and a plot in Thames View Drive. So the argument that it's in a village or infill plot in a village is not felt to be a reasonable case, and development would be inappropriate in that aspect. But we now turn to the aspect of the grey belt, and as you've mentioned the earlier report, one of the aspects we've looked at is whether the site is in the green belt or grey belt, and whether it fulfils the various definitions set out in the MPPF as to whether it's grey belt. What officers have used is the green belt study I mentioned earlier, produced in 2023, and this area is in the parcel known as OA5 in the southwest of the borough. That area is typically quite open in character, got several nature reserves, country parks, what have you, and provides a strategic gap between Basildon and Stamford-le-Hope, or forms part of that gap within those two neighbouring towns. And from the slide you can see here, the consultants at the time considered that allocation of this area for resident development would cause very high harm in terms of its impact on the green belt and its purposes of including in the green belt. I mean, it could be argued if you look at the more smaller individual spaces of the site, there has more limited impact, but the site itself is really only bounded on one site by development. You've got the road on the other side, open areas to the north, and the remainder of the open site to the south. So in the officer's opinion, we feel it doesn't fulfil the definition of grey belt until government advice is updated. That is the officer's view in this instance. if say in terms of the various special circumstances that the applicant has put forward, as set out on pages 227 to 2230, the applicant has put forward that the site itself had been put in a previous replacement local plan as a potential infill policy. However, the weight given to that plan is virtually nil, given that it was never actually assessed by an inspector as to whether it was sound or had any weight. The second aspect is the council's lack of a 5-year land supply, and whilst there's some limited weight to that, given it's only 2 properties, that would not significantly resolve the housing deficit in the borough as a whole. The same aspect relates to the third aspect, of the lack of accommodation for elderly population. Again, officers agree there is a demand for that area of dwellings, but again, the limited, two dwellings, it's not going to create a significant impact in that need. The other aspects are the health and well-being benefits. Again, there will be some limited weight there. Community support, they say that there's been a number of people in favour, but we feel that has no weight because that's something you just judge on its merits. And the last one is, sorry, they've got a couple of more. The minimal impacts of the property in the Greenbelt. And as we're coming to, the property's site itself is currently open. Development of the 2 dwellings on the site would have quite a significant impact on the openness of that site. Therefore, we don't feel that there's any weight on that aspect. The final one is they have compared the scheme to the recent proposal for the McDonald's at home base. They feel that this has more justification than that. However, they are totally different aspects. That site is on a previous developed site and an area that is more developed than this instance. So it's not felt that any of the special circumstances put forward would outweigh the harm of the proposal of this proposal in the Greenbelt. In terms of other aspects, say the proposed dwellings would meet the relevant design standards, appropriate amenity space would be provided, there would be limited impacts on neighbouring occupiers in terms of overlooking or loss of privacy. Ecological aspects have been appropriately mitigated against with provision of back boxes and the like. Parking is to standard, and the overall conclusion in this instance is that whilst there's some benefits to provision of 2 retirement bungalows, the harm that would cause on this Greenbelt site would be significant, and the development would be inappropriate in the Greenbelt, and the officers have put forward the reasons for refusal as set out on page 238. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, David. Have we got any clarification points? Mike?
Thank you, Chair. So, yeah, I've got a few actually, Dave. So, on one of your very first slides, you showed a figure, 94.5 metres. Can you just confirm what that's about?
I think that's from what's there as the applicant's location plan. I think that's the heights of the area, 94.5 metres above sea level.
Okay, thank you. Did I understand correctly that we had 1 person respond against this and 6 people respond for it? Did I hear that correctly?
That's correct. Yeah.
Thank you. Am I right in saying that in your view as officers this is not grey belt? Is that correct?
That's how we've assessed it. It's in the report. Yeah.
Okay. And is it appropriate to say then, obviously in the previous application, which I was listening to, obviously I wasn't participating in, there was a question mark over, it's been regarded as grey belt, but that is open to interpretation. Does the same thing apply here? I.e., if you don't think it's a grey belt, we reserve the right to think it is.
Yeah, that's your prerogative. You say it's a new guidance, and people have slightly different views on it. Yeah.
Okay, so last question. If we do regard this as being grey belt, let's just say we took that view, would I be right in saying that then this would be considered not inappropriate, in other words, appropriate development?
It would then you'd have to assess it against the various criteria or set out in paragraph 155, which if you previously, which to do with say first thing is utilising grey belt, a demonstrable need for housing, which you could argue there is, and then the fourth aspect is it in a sustainable location, and that's the one it could well fall down on. Is very poor in terms of bus and footpaths and such like from this immediate area, but that's for you to determine.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Best declare before I ask my technical question of clarification is that I know Mr Beckford, the applicant, is one of my constituents. Whenever there's a pothole or a dump sofa or a dead thing dumped in Dry Street, he's one of the first person on my case, no matter how early or late in the day. My question of clarification is, the officer said, Mr Gill, about public transport. If I lived anywhere along Dry Street, even on the new Red Row and Stonebond development, I'd still have that problem, wouldn't I?
Red Row one, you'd probably be much closer to the Nevermain than this site is, yeah.
Madam Chairman, through you, if I lived on the Dry Street part of the development, there is no public transport, nor is there public transport in Stonebond, and you cannot walk from Clark Street, which was built by Stonebond, through the Red Row estate and access public transport from the hospital. So wherever you live along Dry Street, the argument I would suggest about public transport is null and void.
Yeah, do you want me to answer? Yeah, so we're looking at this particular application, how far it is from the bus. That's an aspect. If you were to consider it to be grey belt, you would have to make a judgment as to whether it's a sustainable location or not. Yeah, you may well say, if you're saying that the other end of Dry Street is not sustainable, then it could be argued you're agreeing that it's not a sustainable location.
It was just a question, not a statement.
Alex.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so there's been a few in the last few years of this one coming forwards. I can't find them on any agenda, so I assume they were all done through Cat 2. Is that correct?
Yeah, they were done with the chairman at the time, whoever it may be, would have signed it off under category 1, as we call them. Yeah.
Cat 1, sorry. So why is this one? I'm glad this one has come to the committee, but why has this one come to the committee and the previous ones hadn't?
I think there was interest from the local ward councillors to say, and the chairman has agreed to bring it forward. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any more clarifications? No? Alan.
Thank you, Chair. About the definition of a village, is there like a standard definition of what a village is that everyone sort of goes to when they want to decide what a village is or not? Or is it sort of an opinion?
Yeah, there doesn't appear to be a definition as such, and inspectors seem to have look at it on a case-by-case basis. So in this case, as I mentioned, the recent appeal, the inspector didn't consider this to be a village.
No more questions? No clarifications? No? Okay. Let's go into calling the first person to come forward, which is Adam Beckford, please.
Good evening, councillors. My name is Adam Beckford, and I'm the owner and director of Piermont Homes. I live in Langdon Hills, and I have deep roots in this area. I'm passionate about my community, but also about delivering high-quality individual homes where they are needed most. Piermont Homes is a local family-run company. We employ locally, use local suppliers, and directly contribute to the local economy. I stand before you tonight because this application fully complies with planning policy, meets an urgent housing need and has strong local support. First, this site qualifies as grey belt under the 2024 NPPF. The government introduced this policy to allow sustainable development on land that does not significantly contribute to the green belt openness, which this site does not. It is enclosed by development and roads and has already been identified as an infill site in previous planning studies. Second, these homes meet very special circumstances because there is a clear and urgent need for retirement housing. Basildon has only 1.88 years of housing supply, and yet no major developer is building bungalows. Where are the older residents supposed to live? Third, this site qualifies as limited infill in a village under NPPF 149G. Dry Street is a village. It has 2 churches, a pub, a meeting hall, and a long-standing recognition. The planning inspectorate has ruled that a formal designation isn't required for this policy to apply. Similar applications have been approved elsewhere, so why is Dry Street being treated differently? Fourth, this application site has over 20 letters of support from local residents. Public support is a material consideration, yet has been dismissed in this officer's report. Councillors, you were elected to represent the community, and this is what they want. Furthermore, a planning application for 2 semi-detached bungalows at the Willows, Moores Avenue, Fobbing, was initially refused by the council on the grounds of Greenbelt harm and inappropriateness. However, today, the planning inspectorate has overturned this refusal on appeal, recognising that the proposal constitutes appropriate limited infill within an established plotland area. The inspector found that the officer's assessment failed to properly consider national policy changes and precedent cases. Importantly, the decision highlights that small-scale, sustainable developments like this can be justified even in the Greenbelt when they meet local housing needs and cause no significant harm to openness. This is a major win for logical, policy-backed development, reinforcing that councils must apply planning rules fairly and consistently. This decision is in your hands tonight. You have the full authority to approve this application, and the facts are clear. It complies with national and local policy. It delivers homes that local people actually need. It has strong local support. It causes no harm to the Greenbelt. A refusal will only lead to an appeal, costs and delays, taking the decision out of your hands, but an approval tonight is the right decision, legally, morally, and for the community you serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam Beckford. Can I call Councillor Adele Brown, please?
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. I'm here in support of this planning application for various reasons, ranging from the new NPPF 2024, the borough's housing shortfall, and a key material difference between this and past appeal decisions. This recommendation falls predominantly on looking at 2 appeal decisions, one made in 2019, one made in 2013, both of which were before the new NPPF update in 2024.
The first one relied on the fact that it did not have a boundary that was within a designated village. However, the new MPPF, paragraph 154E, now permits limited infill in settlements even where there is no formal village boundary exists, as long as it can be shown that an existing settlement is there. The site is adjacent to existing development, meeting this updated definition of infill. Also, that first appeal decision was a two-storey dwelling. This is not. It's a single storey, therefore has significantly less harm to the greenbelt. The second appeal from 2013, as you can see, some 11 years before our recent most up-to-date legislation, was for a new development where it was wholly undeveloped greenbelt land. And therefore significant harm could be shown, because this would be the first introduction of urban development. In this planning application, that is not true. It could be considered under MPPF 115 that is in fact a grey belt consideration. It is clear that this single plot of land, and we should not be considering the whole area, we should be considering the curtilage of this site. Unlike Adelaide Cottage, which did prevent urban sprawl, this doesn't prevent urban sprawl, it doesn't separate settlements, and it doesn't preserve a historic setting, meaning that this should be considered grey belt. We all know that we do not have enough housing supply within this borough. Our recent consultation type of homes we do not have enough of. One homes types that we do not have enough of is homes for retirement. This is providing 2 bungalows. I agree with the officer that I would like to see more of these coming forward. We should not be penalising small developers just because it is easier to fulfil our numbers using large development. It's important that we recognise the purpose of the green belt, that we know that this has limited weighting in terms of what it actually provides, in terms of what the green belt should be doing. And I fully support the idea that this is grey belt and that we should be viewing it as such. It is definitely a sustainable location. I disagree with Councillor Smith. It is just under 15 minutes walking distance to a bus stop, where we have the 100, the 199, the 626 and the B2 all running regularly, both days, evenings and weekends. It is, 15 minutes away from the local hospital. It is a quite short drive away from supermarkets, doctors, schools, all things that people along this development, along Dry Street, already use. And therefore is perfectly sustainable in terms of what amenities are already there to justify people being able to live there sustainably. So sort of in conclusion, I'm wrapping through quite quick because I could probably talk for 20 minutes about this. The site meets the MPPF 154E for limited infill. It qualifies for redevelopment under MPPF 154G. It aligns with the MPPF 155 grey belt considerations. It directly contributes to our housing shortfall, which is MPPF 11D. It meets MPPF 63 needs for retirement homes, which is identified as well in our housing need. It is a highly sustainable location, meeting MPPF 108 and 110. Past appeals were assessed under outdated policies, not underneath our present legislation that came through in December 2024. So therefore, any considerations about openness can be mitigated, I am sure, through our planning conditions. And therefore, I would ask this committee to a recommendation to actually accept this and allow this planning application to go forward. We have a defensible justification for this to grant permission, and I would strongly urge you to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dale Brown. Councillor Kerry Smith.
Madam Chairman, can I speak as a group leader?
No.
When the meeting comes back into recess, like normality. I'm limited. Right. Well, it's pretty. Well, I wanted to speak as a group leader because at the last meeting I was having silly discussions with a former member of this council. We thought it was Royston Vasey and he had to have a village shop, and I explained to him it is a village. It hasn't got a sign, hasn't got that, and it acts like a village, it lives like a village. I was even told by a committee member, or an officer here, that it hasn't got a church, and I said, well, where do they vote? It's a church and there's one at the top of the hill. Now, the reason I'm here tonight to speak for it, I have a lot of constituents in Langdon Hills. They're getting on. They might not be classed as disabled to get a blue badge, but it's aggravation walking up the stairs. You see the adverts on the TV. They're selling stair lifts inside people's houses. It's good that people are living longer, but getting old is not a disability in its legal term. We all know it is. We all try and understand it. I want to look at what Mr. Beckford has done in other developments in my area. Stacey Drive, Butler's Grove. That's a very nice one, actually. And the more recent one in Great Berry Lane, and that bungalow he built in Chelsea Drive. It is all Langdon Hills people moving into them. And when those two at Stacey Drive were built, these bungalows, I was talking to him, oh, hello, Mr. So-and-so. He went, yep, I've moved down here from such and such a road. The house was too big. This suits me. I can take the dog for a walk. Got me independent living. But the point is, they still use the same GP surgery, but from a different address, because it's still local. They still go to the Triangle shops. Now, if this committee decides to reject, I would ask members to cast their mind not far from here, a street called Bells Hill Road. And there was a piece of land, there was some sort of stables or something, and the applicant wanted to build a home for his daughter. This council said no. The landowner just couldn't get planning permission, couldn't wait forever and a day, so he sold the land, and the highest bidder won, and the person there has done planning activity. I won't go into details because they're not here to put their side across. And it's caused a bit of planning enforcement. So do we want to be in a situation where people with these pockets of land, which are not a problem to develop, just go, do you know what, the council isn't going to ever let me get planning permission. The system's not going to ever get me get planning permission. I do appreciate what you said, Councillor Brown, I appreciate that. But I'm speaking from all the times we've been here before. And they just go, you know what, I will sell this piece of land to the highest bidder, and someone could be putting stuff on there that requires planning enforcement, which is a cost to the council, where if these are passed today, that will mean my constituents in Langdon Hills have somewhere to downsize to. That releases family homes for the next generation. And they're paying council tax and carrying on putting in, rather than having, I'm not saying this is the case, but the possibility of planning enforcement when someone sells the land on because they can't get planning.
Smith, 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Now I'll open it up for members. Any members wish to speak on this? Alex.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, looking at the exceptions to what can be built on Greenbelt, I don't think it, as Councillor Brown earlier said, meets paragraph G, which is limited infilling or a partial or complete redevelopment of previously developed land, which is not previously developed land. So I do not think it comes under paragraph G for that. After having, so obviously it comes down to the other reasons, and of course the principle of Greenbelt being protected. So after being Vice Chair of Planning last year, I've seen many of these applications come to Cat 1s, which I've read and gone through and had discussions with the Chair at the time. And a lot of them were refused around the points of Part E, limited infilling in villages. A lot of those were in Wickford, Studland Avenue, Newhouse Avenue, around there, where the inspector had actually overturned them, saying that they were within walking distance of Wickford town centre, and therefore the site could be classified as a village. Now, there is no definition of what a village is in the NPPF or any of the PPG, so it is, of course, down to everyone's individual judgment about what constitutes a village. Now, I could say to myself that I grew up in Shotgate in Wickford, which I consider to be village infill around there. Larger developments were built in the 80s, but there was a parade of shops there. There was a community centre planned to be there, but was never built. They were going to put a pub there, but never did either. But obviously there was a church. There was a parade of 6-7 shops there, which was allowed, obviously limited infill in the village, which then joined Shotgate into Wickford. That's just from personal experience where I live. So all of this stuff about limited infilling in villages is difficult to judge. I don't think it absolutely does not qualify for paragraph G at all, in my view. But in terms of paragraph E, I'm a bit on the fence of this one, so I'll make my mind up. I'll have to listen to other people speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. I think Mike was first and then you.
Thank you, Chair. So, yeah, a couple of things I think from me. Firstly, I think to describe these as retirement homes is a little bit of a stretch in my vocabulary, in the sense that they are, quite substantial. I appreciate they've got disabled access and so on, but they are very substantially sized properties, and although they are walking distance from bus stops, as we discussed, they don't strike me as being in an ideal location for retirement properties, I have to say. But having said that, I think the main issue for me here is how this site sits versus green belt and grey belt. I mean, to me, this looks like an obvious grey belt site. It's not open countryside. It doesn't contribute to items A, B, or D of item 143 of the MPPF. It's a slither of land of area. I'm going to say about 1,500 square metres, so 1.15 hectares, in a development that is about 15 hectares, I'm going to say. So it's 100th of that development in terms of its site area, and it's bound on all four sides by either housing or a road. So to me, this is an obvious grey belt site, and for that reason I would support the proposal, which otherwise seems a good quality proposal to me.
Thank you, Mike. Kevin Blake.
Yeah, just a couple of things. I'm going back to 1992 now, showing my age as a councillor. And one of the things that I was always strong and passionate about was having a special development policy within the Green Belt, especially over the area that I represented at that time, which was the Bales Gifford and the plot lands over there. And I know that's been shared. That's always been my stance on it. So, whilst this is slightly more of I'm not a great lover of backfill. I always like frontage to be built on and then nothing actually behind, because otherwise you can get the plot lands. They put in an application to build at the bottom of their gardens, and it gets a little bit complicated. But I see the benefits of this. Do find it strange though, and Councillor Bacon sort of touched on it, to be honest with you. We got the previous application, we had grade 3 agricultural land, which we actually cast as grade 3 agricultural green belt land, which we actually class as grey belt. And now we've got one here that they're saying is green belt, when really I agree with what Councillor Baker said. It should be, to me, it should be grey belt on that sense. But what I find strange about it, and I'm minded to support this if. To refuse the officer's recommendation, but it is strange that we're willing to go against an expert now, which is our officers, on this issue, and yet we won't go against an expert's voice when it comes to highways in another application. It just seems there's a bit of double standard there. So we're happy to say to an officer, actually, we don't think you've got it right. But what we're not doing is in other applications, in what's happened certainly in the Bursted area, we're not prepared to say for county, we think you've got it wrong. So there seems to be a bit of double standard there as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you, Councillor Brake. Anybody else? Alex? No? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, I haven't got much more to add than what's already been said, really. I'm looking at the map on my laptop, and I'm looking at the aerial view on the screen, and I'm thinking, if this is, it's completely surrounded by other properties. If those properties were considered greenbelt, which I'm sure they were, and then they got built on, why would this one be any different, really? But yeah, I think this is an ideal location to put a development on, because it's right in the middle of plenty of other similar developments. So I'm not really understanding the points in the agenda that it's not suitable for building. It seems like the perfect place to to put a development because it's completely surrounded by plenty of other developments. So yeah, I can't really understand the arguments there, but yeah, I haven't got any more to add other than that really.
Thank you. Any more questions? No? No, I haven't really got a problem with this because the plot lands are there. They, you know, there's houses there, and I think we should probably get infills in them and treat them all equally because we know what happens otherwise. Like disabled as well. We've got Papworth Trust in our area that you do so much for the disabled where they can go, and we haven't got many disabled properties, so I haven't got a problem, no. So let's go into the recommendation that planning application number 240141994 be refused, planning permission for the reasons set out at the end of the. All those in favour show. All those against? Yeah.
Right, because we're not carrying the recommendation, we defer the site to come back.
Yeah. Because we're not accepting the recommendation, we're going to have to defer this item to come back. Okay? Thank you, everyone. Item 6. Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Hilliard, you're going on this one, don't you? You've declared an interest. I'll pass it over to you, Ellie, when you're ready. And that is planning application number 24008-574, erection of a freestanding drive-through restaurant, landscaping and associated work, excluding customers' order displays, COD and alterations to existing car park area at car park to the front of Home Base London Road, Vange, Essex. Thank you, Ellie.
Sorry, everyone. Thank you, Chairman. So, the plan application for a new freestanding drive-through restaurant, McDonald's, on land at car park to the front of Home Base was considered at the Planning Committee on the 4th of December 2024. At this Planning Committee, a motion was proposed that the planning application be granted planning permission subject to completion of the Section 106 agreement and conditions, but upon being put to the vote, it was not carried. Following further debate, Planning Committee members expressed concerns regarding the impact of the proposed development on the Greenbelt and also health concerns in relation to the close proximity of the proposed development to Vange Primary School. It was resolved that this plan application be deferred to a future meeting for considerations of the specific reasons for refusal. It's however important to note that since December 2024, since this planning committee, of course, has been discussed, there's been a revised version of the MPPF, and in this recent update, there's been some changes to sections relating to the Greenbelt, which we're very aware of now, and also to health. So in this instance, this is no longer a report of a deferral. This is a new recommendation based on the material consideration of the revised MPPF. It's also important to note, however, that given that although the recommendation has changed, the only two reconsiderations within this instance are Greenbelt and health, based on the changes to the MPPF, and all the other material considerations previously assessed remain the same. I will give a brief bit of background, although I know that most members sat in the room today were present. So this application site is on London Road in Vange, and it lies at the edge of an existing car park which serves the home-based store, and it's also located within the green belt. There's approximately 260 existing car parking spaces provided for this home-based store, with extensive tarmac and hard standing, together with comprehensive lighting, as seen in these photos. So this is just to remind members that may not have been here. This is the site plan for the site, the floor and the roof plan, and the elevations and the sections. So, as previously described, as this is a new recommendation, we're looking at the two material considerations from the revisions to the MPPF of relevance to this scheme, which is Greenbelt and Health. So, starting with the Greenbelt, the impact of the proposed development on the Greenbelt. The original committee report, which was discussed at the 4th of December, concluded that given the site was currently used for car parking and already generated vehicular activity, that given that a large amount of the site was hard surface and contained in the car park with lighting columns, and due to the location screened from the street scene, which forms quite an urbanised character, the nature of the proposed change was concluded to have a limited impact on the openness of the Greenbelt. It was also concluded that on balance, by virtue of the site's enclosed nature, the existing use and its moderate contribution to Greenbelt purposes 1A and 3C, together with the very special circumstances identified, that these very special circumstances outweighed that assessed harm to the Greenbelt. Now, since this revision, there's been the inclusion of paragraph 155, which specifically mentions that the development of homes, commercial and other development in the Greenbelt should also not be regarded as inappropriate where. This talks about utilising Greybelt land. It talks about if there's a demonstrable unmet need for the type of development proposed. It talks about the development being in a sustainable location, and also about the golden rules. Now, obviously, in this instance, this is not this is just a commercial scheme. So we have come to the conclusion, which is outlined within my report, the reasons why we've come to that conclusion, that this site is Greybelt. We have identified that there is not a need for this type of development proposed within the area, given the location of various McDonald's drive-thrus within the Basildon Borough itself. And we've also outlined about its unsustainable location, given that the part of the development itself is car-based, so it's hard to define this as a sustainable development. Now, whilst the application site can be considered as Greenbelt, which meets the requirements of 155A, the proposal would not accord with 155B or 155C of the MPPF. D is not relevant given the context of the proposal. So therefore, the proposed development is considered to be inappropriate development in the Greenbelt, which is the same outcome from the previous recommendation we gave of approval. As given this is inappropriate, we then have a very special circumstances case, which we need to outweigh, see if this would outweigh the harm to the Greenbelt. So, as explored before, but I will briefly go over them again. Within the first recommendation, these very special circumstances still remain the same. So that's including economic benefits of the scheme, which we consider carry substantial weight in favour. This includes jobs, this includes restaurants that come into the supply chain, the wider economy, the contribution of the McDonald's to the Basildon Borough economy. We also have the very special circumstances of sustainability benefits, which also carry, they carry limited weight in favour of the scheme, which is to do with the modular build, things like the passive solar gain in winter from the sustainability features, green living wall. And the final very special circumstance would be that of the landscaping and site enhancements, which is a similar realm. So therefore, it is still of the opinion of officers that on balance, the harm to the Greenbelt is limited by virtue of the site's enclosed nature, existing use, its definition as Greybelt, and its moderate contribution to the Greenbelt purposes 1A and 3C. And therefore, the very special circumstances are considered to outweigh the harm to the Greenbelt, and therefore the proposal accords with the provisions of paragraph 153 of the MPPF. Therefore, we're not recommending refusal on a Greenbelt ground. We now move over to health. So as outlined, there has been some revisions to the MPPF. So the initial 96C stays the same in terms of enabling and supporting healthy lives. However, there has been the addition of paragraph 97, which specifically outlines that local planning authorities should refuse applications for hot food takeaways and fast food outlets, A, within walking distance of schools and other places where children and young people congregate, unless the location is within a designated town centre, or B, in locations where there is evidence that a concentration of such uses is having an adverse impact on local health, pollution or antisocial behaviour. Now in terms of A, the proposed development is located within an 8-minute walk of Vange Primary School or nursery, therefore it doesn't meet that requirement, and obviously the policy then outlines that this is only acceptable within a designated town centre, which its application site is not, and therefore the proposal would not comply with 97A of the MPPF 2024. Now, whilst it's noted that there is most definitely evidence of a concentration of such uses in Basildon of McDonald's drive-through restaurants and drive-through restaurants themselves, there is no evidence to show that of the concentration of such uses is having an adverse impact on local health, pollution or antisocial behaviour, and therefore we are not refusing on B in that instance. So given that the revised MPPF gives greater weight to health objectives and the proposed development by reason of its location within walking distance of Vange Primary School, outside of a designated town centre and in the wider Basildon conurbation area, would not enable and support healthy lives, contrary to paragraphs 96C and 97A of the MPPF, and therefore we are recommending refusal on that basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. Is there any points of clarification from anyone? I think we've all been here before. Councillor Smith, you can't speak. Sorry, Councillor Smith, you can't speak. Okay. So we'll just go into the recommendation if there's no one else that speaks. No, if no one else wants to speak, listen to what I've got to say, Kevin, before you... Right. Does anybody want to speak on this? Oh, Alex.
Yeah.
Madam Chairman, I have to intervene here. It is in the Council's constitution that group leaders are able to attend and speak at all meetings of Council. Which part of the constitution does the officer say I'm not able to do that?
Councillor Smith, have you registered to speak on this particular item?
Through the chair to the officer, I am talking about the constitution of the council. That all group leaders, or their deputy if the group leader is not present, are able to attend and speak at all meetings of council. Now, if you say that's not right, what part of the constitution is that, please?
Councillor Blake, I did let Andrew Baggett speak. I did.
Correct, but he was allowed.
He was allowed, and
So on that.
and then I was told he was allowed, and then I said he could speak because I was told he wasn't. First off, so we changed it. Councillor Smith, yes, go on.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I hope I was nice, but you have to defend the constitution whether you're in administration or in opposition. I just wanted to briefly say thank you to the officers for looking at that point, but to quote Del Boy, how much quicker would it take Linford Christie to walk? Because I can bet he can do it quicker than 8 minutes. On that joke aside, tragically home base has closed, and I went past there yesterday at around the time of the school run and ahead of this planning application, and where the gates are closed there's enough space for 2 or 3 parents' cars, and they were parked there. So I think that backs up your argument in planning law that if parents are parking at the school home base gates and walking down to the school to grab their small child, if the McDonald's was approved, that walking pattern is already established because there is no proper parking in that area, and the young children will use pester power because McDonald's advertise very heavily of their Happy Meals and other promotions to attract children through their products with a toy, and when I went to secondary school, there's a McDonald's right on top of my school gates. 2-minute walk, if that. And there's a bit more of me today because of that, I would say, all jokes aside. And I think for young people, having that so close to their school goes from a treat on a weekend or after school, you know, after some sort of activity in the week, to something that becomes a regular fixture. Yes, McDonald's will say they sell fruit products in their stores, but kids don't pester their parents, go, can I have an apple slice? It's a hamburger, I want fries, I want a shake, and those nice desserts they do. And we've got to think about the next generation. I'm not for nanny state, but there's a reason why, if you look at another thing, why it's frowned upon to smoke outside the school gates. When I was at school, you'd walk past the teacher's office, you could see fumes of smoke, and that's quite right, the school gates are designated a smoke-free zone. And that's what backs up this recommendation for refusal. We shouldn't have a McDonald's outside of a town centre or any other takeaway like that, because we're sending the wrong message to the next generation. Should they have to do what I'm doing, taking Monjaro to shift the pounds? I pay for that myself, but other people will be putting that drain on the NHS. So we have to think ahead. You know, there's plenty of McDonald's in Pitsea and across Basildon, but as Councillor Harrison said at the previous meeting when this was discussed, this will also be creating extra traffic with people coming off the A13 using this as an unauthorised pit stop. And that will make the Nevermain, London Road Vange more clogged in rush hour. So I'll leave them points there. I won't rattle on, but thank you for your indulgence.
Is there anybody else that wish to speak? Alex.
Thank you. I will point out that I did start speaking before I was interrupted and Councillor Smith spoke. But yeah, I mean, this really the updated MPF is confirming the concerns that we had at the previous meeting. Really, that it's too close to a school and that it's not appropriate on the kind of land that it's on. But yeah, I won't say too much more because I think that we're all pretty much in favour that the we're not okay. Well, I will carry on then. But yeah, it's too close to the school. That's the point that we were making last time. It will increase traffic in the area. As Councillor Smith pointed out, parents will walk their kids there, whether it's 8 minutes or 5 minutes or 2 minutes. It depends how fast you walk rather than anything else, I think. And so I don't fully understand the sort of logic of saying it's 8 minutes away when if somebody walks quickly it's 5 minutes, if somebody walks slowly it's 10 minutes. But yeah, my views haven't changed, and I voted to refuse this previously, and now I'm just glad that the MPF has caught up with this committee and that sort of we're on the same page as the government on this now.
Thank you, Alice. Councillor Kevin Blake.
No, we're not on the same page as this. I wasn't last time, but I'm not going to be this time. They will. If they don't win this on appeal, I will be staggered. The rationale behind it, Greenbelt. How can you cast that as Greenbelt? It's a bloody car park that's been there for years, and it's classed as Greenbelt. And I just, when we've got this grey belt issues, I find that a staggering. However, that's not the reason for refusal, so I understand that. It's 8 minutes walk. About 8 minutes walk. Pitsea Town Centre's got McDonald's, about 2 minutes walk. We passed that. We literally passed that. Literally, Charlton School's right there. Do anyone know Stacey's Corner? Yeah. You go across the road and you've got probably 10, 15 fast food. Yeah? Yeah, you've got all the way along, you've got 10 of them. They all got passed. Not a problem. Not a problem at all. So it's also, and I did raise this at the last one, what have we done, and there's a picture of it on there, what have we done with the if you're not going to pass this, why have we allowed, and what action have we taken against the people that already, because it's not as if this is new, they have already got down on there. But what action did we take then? Because I pointed this out some time ago when we came, what action did we take as a council for enforcement on the actual burger van that was been there for donkey's years. We didn't do any. It's a rhetorical question. I'm sure you don't know because of that part of it. It's not part. But we didn't. We allowed it. We allowed a burger van where these children could go and get their burger, and probably a lot worse health than what McDonald's do, to be fair. And as Mo knows, I'm not a big McDonald's fan, as we made a point out last time. Never have done, never will be. But what's the difference between them going to that burger van and have been going there for years for the 8-minute walk? What is the difference between that and the McDonald's, which is a drive-through? So actually, the children are not going to be walking there. They're not going to be in the cars, are they? So whether it's a drive-through or not is irrelevant. So what we've got a situation now is we had a fast food place on there, and we took no action of enforcement on how anybody can call that green belt is amazing. It's an 8-minute walk, is one of the reasons why we're refusing it. Yet we pass a McDonald's in Pitsea Town Centre, which is less than 2 minutes walk to a shop, to a school. We've got Stacey's Corner, as I said before. I know it's going in the past, but we've got Stacey's Corner the same, and I could probably name a load more as well, where we have got fast food of a sort outside of Kingswood, I think, down by the pub there, they have a burger van there. There's a school right by there as well. Where are you going to stop? They will win this on appeal. And we were talking about earlier, we've got to refuse these things because we're going to lose it on appeal. You're going to lose this one on appeal. I hope the council do it because they deserve to. They're going to make a stupid decision like this.
Thank you, Councillor Baker.
Sorry, Chair, I have no desire whatsoever to extend this discussion any further. However, I'm going to have to. I assume we're correct in saying that the reason that all those fast food developments that Councillor Blythe just described were approved and this one isn't is because the MPPF has changed in December and there's now a clause that says you can't put a fast food joint next to a primary school. Primary school,
yeah. No. We'll go straight into the recommendation. Obviously, there's nobody else that wishes to speak to it. That the planning application 24008574 be refused planning permission for the following reason. And I'm just going to read out the proposed development by reason of its location within walking distance of Vange Primary School, outside of a designated town centre in the wider Basildon conurbation area, would not enable and support healthy lives, contrary to paragraph 9, 6C and 97A of the MPPF 2024. I think that's what's changed. All those in favour, please show. Any abstentions? Against? One against. So it's refused. Thank you, Ellie. Good night, everyone. Thank you.